Uh-oh. What's up, everybody? There we go. I showed my whole Discord. I think it's okay. Hope everyone is doing well. We're just getting set up. As we do. I have a fan blasting to create white noise so that I don't wake people up at my house because we had to do this very special time. But Visa should be joining us shortly, which I'm very hyped for. And we'll do the show. Also, by the way, I have followers only chat is on. I better say that. This is an experiment. That means follow me. And then unfollow me later if you care about that. But this is an experiment to see if I can get people to follow me, to be in chat. But I think it's easy. I think you have to have an account to chat anyway. Also, if anyone wants to know how the audio balance is, especially with his music, that would be very useful information. I'm going to turn it down a little. What's up, 𝔽𝕝𝕚𝕚𝕝𝕚 baby maker. 𝕙𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚, hello, hello. I'm just pouring whiskey in my coffee. Whiskey fans would be upset with me right now because this whiskey is too nice to go in coffee. Yeah, I know. I'm drinking 𝔽𝕝𝕚𝕚 12-year in decaf Starbucks. As one does. So, oh yeah, no, it's decaf. I mean, it's 9 p.m. here. Nice. Pretty hyped for this episode. Nice, yeah, this is amazing.
Hell yeah! That's what I'm talking about.
Oh my god. Henry Person with the sub. Yeah, dude. Time flies indeed. Yeah, this is episode number 14 of Philosophers on Twitch playing Flight Simulator. So that, and well, technically we had a movie episode, so that's 15 that we've actually done. So that's almost 4 months, which is kind of cool. I only have to do 85 more for Visa to respect my channel. Should I message him? Be like, bro, get on the podcast. What if he stands me up? Ready when you are. Just hop in the channel.
Welcome to this podcast.
Welcome, Click 10, to this talk show. Good to have you. How's the audio balance? I'm not seeing any complaints. Wait a second. Is that Visa?
Yeah, give me a second.
Yeah. Amazing. Uh-oh, I figured out at the last moment that I've set up my Discord video wrong, so I'm going to edit that real fast.
Sure thing.
That audio balance sounds good. So the way this works, audience people, is that I have to like guess the proper number of pixels to cut off from the top of this window in order to make it look good. There we go. Now we got views. Oh, it's almost right. Let's make it a little more perfect. Yeah. That ad for the 𝔽𝕝𝕚𝕚 was pretty good. Makes me want a 𝔽𝕝𝕚𝕚. Guys, I'm so sorry that you have to watch ads to click on this channel. I don't know if I get any money from that. I might get a few cents or something, but I would rather just not have it. Beckman's running to Taco Bell if anybody wants to DM him your order. Or just post it in the chat. Thank you, Beckman. How much time did the haircut take? That's a matter of debate. Uh-oh. It's a matter of some debate. In normal human years, it was about 45 minutes. You know what? I kind of like this music. I don't like a lot of the music that I end up having to play in this channel sometimes because I've overplayed it or it sounds like porn music. I was on earlier and I played some music and it just, at first I was like, yeah, free stream music, but it just sounded like porn music. Well, welcome, Soren. We're glad you made it. P-Zombie, actually my dad did it. My dad cut my hair. And this is his third time cutting my hair since the pandemic, and he's gotten better at it. I have to argue with him, just be like, no, this side is actually longer.
To this podcast.
Welcome, ℎ𝕙𝕚𝕚𝕚. Oh wait, ℎ𝕙𝕚𝕚𝕚. That's a better name than ℎ𝕙𝕚𝕚𝕚. Welcome. P-Zombie's been cutting his own hair, and it's tragic. I did that a couple times in high school. Soren was listening to random music last week, and one of the songs was a remix of Moans from a porno. So weird, I was so relieved to be wearing headphones. It's pretty good. But was it good music? Was it a good remix? Or would you prefer the original? It was not. This is a weak porn remix compared to others. Oh no, wait, it's fucking up my video again. Okay. Hey Visa, we got you on. Let me fix this so that you're actually on the screen.
Sure thing.
Oh yeah, and you sound great too. Alright.
I just woke up.
Good morning. Alright, here we go. 520. Alright, this looks pretty good. I think we got you on screen. Beautiful. Alright, dude.
Awesome.
Welcome to the show. I figured since you were waking up, I would have coffee with you, so I have my coffee here. But I put some whiskey in it.
Excellent.
Yeah. So let's pick a destination and a plane to get it started. So as I mentioned before, you'll have a little bit of delay, but we can go from anywhere in the world to anywhere in the world, but it's at the same pace as that actual flight would be, unless I cheat, which I can do. So if it's a 5-hour flight, it would take us 5 hours.
Where do you normally start?
I've done it.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. We've done all kinds of stuff. We've done New York a bunch. We did Dubai. We've never done Singapore, though I don't know if that interests you. We've done Italy a few times. We did Russia once. I think we've been to some parts of Africa. I don't know. Yeah. Lithros votes Havana. Soren says we haven't done Australia. That's true.
Yeah, we can do Australia.
You want to do Australia?
Go, why not?
Let's do it. Should we start in Sydney? That sounds. I've never been to Australia. I figure Sydney's a good place to start.
That works.
Sweet. Set an arrival. What do you want to do? We could go west. We could go along the water. Maybe go north. We could follow the coast. We could just.
Let's go to. How long does it take to go to Japan?
From Australia,
Hours.
it's probably going to take. Well, it'll tell us.
I think 8 hours probably.
20 hours. Well, it depends on the plane. So if I pick the 747, which I think is the fastest plane, that will take 17 hours. So it's pretty brutal.
Whoa. Whoa. It's way longer than I would have guessed.
Yeah, the ocean is huge.
Oh, we can just go from one part of Australia to another part.
Yeah. Well, let's pick that, and
From
then
the other coast.
if we get sick of it, we could check out Japan.
Sure.
Change it up.
Ooh.
And what plane would you like? What were you gonna say?
I mean, that's interesting.
To this podcast.
Plane. Is that a propeller plane? Yes, let's pick a propeller plane.
You want a propeller plane? People love the propeller planes.
Fine.
All right.
Old school.
So we can take this one. It's kind of slow. Well, whatever. If I crash, I crash. Let's go in the red propeller plane. We'll make it work. Yeah, you'll see that the range is very small, if you can see this, because it runs out of gas and stuff. But we'll go as far as we can, and then
Yikes.
we'll change it up. Nice. All right. We got a few. Soren, no, we cannot take an ICBM. They have not added that DLC yet. What's up, Volga Free? Got some discussion of porn music in the chat. That's exciting. Pedal-powered superlight. Sounds crazy. How's your morning going, Visa?
It was a bit of a rush because I kind of snoozed a couple of times, and I ran down to buy breakfast and coffee. And
Yeah.
then- But I made it in time, so it's not so bad. But I'm still kind of still not fully booted up yet.
Well, take your
It's
time.
fun.
Take your time. We're just chilling. It looks like it spawned us in the air, so we don't have to watch me like fail to get off the ground a bunch of times, which sometimes happens.
What do you
But
think?
here we are.
Ah,
Just if you're curious, I get to press all these buttons and stuff in the plane. So it's like a whole... Like, I just messed up the fuel. Like, somehow. I don't know how any of this shit works, but... And you can actually see through the floor in this plane, it looks like. Whoa.
wow.
Welcome to this
It's pretty cool, huh?
podcast.
I don't know if you can see it. They've even got
Possible.
some scratches on the windshield, like around here.
Damn.
Yeah, it's pretty
Mercy.
impressive. What's up, Roaring Poet? So Lithros is in chat. Lithros just had a baby. We're all very hyped about this.
Yeah, so congrats, Lethros.
Yeah, man. Oh god. Okay, so this is one of
Lots
those
of babies
situations.
happening these days.
Yeah, it's exciting. So, okay, by the way, I'm just losing altitude right now, and I don't know why, because I am really bad at this game. So I'm just gonna, I think I'm just gonna hit this fucking building. All right. So,
That works.
all
Try
right.
it. Oh. Ooh.
All right, guys. Well, stream's over.
Great flight.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna
Brave maiden voyage of.
So now I just cheat and put us back in the air and see if I can make it work.
Wee.
There we go. We're back.
Welcome to this
A
podcast.
little little bit of a freeze. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Welcome, anti-robust. It looks like my stream's a little anti-robust right now. Has this game frozen? Oh no.
Let
We're
me
back.
close all my other shit.
Yeah.
Spotify, books, preview, force quit.
So you've probably shown your setup on Twitter or something before.
Huh? Close Discord.
No, don't close Discord.
Yeah.
I feel like you're the kind of person who would have crazy like computer hacks or something like that. Do you
Not really. Sort of. Not much.
not much?
Interesting. What makes you say that? Though?
Come on, what do you mean? What makes me say that? Because I feel like you would have a thread that's like, here are things I did that saved me like 10,000 hours a year. You know,
Yeah, I think people do kind of assume that, I guess, but I'm sloppier than people seem to expect.
Uh-huh.
I'm just so I type a lot, but I don't really care about my keyboard. I don't really care about like my note taking app or whatever. Like I'm pretty sloppy. I'm like, I'll just do whatever works.
Yeah. I've tried for years to have a consistent note-taking system, but I also I can't do it. I take notes in like, I have a personal Slack. I have phone notes. I take it on paper. I just use like I just started using Obsidian. I use Notion. I used Evernote back in the day. I don't know what it is. It just seems like the thoughts come out differently in different formats, and I just want to get them out.
That's true. It's so true. I think that's definitely part of the fun, and it's also annoying.
Yeah.
Cat's trying to get out of the room. Give me a second.
You should bring your cat over.
Yeah, he'll be back.
He'll be back.
There's one more down here. I don't know if you can see. What did I just do? Just down here.
Oh. Hey, cat.
How did I just kill my monitor? Okay, we're back.
So what time is it by you? It's 10 something.
10:20 a.m.
So I tried to set this up for year 11, but then daylight savings happened here and fucked it up. So
Yeah, I never understand that.
Yeah. Oh, you guys don't have it?
Yeah, because we're right on the equator, so it's like all around year is basically the same.
Uh-huh.
Like maybe like I think sunrise starts a little earlier in the early part of the year,
Right.
but apart from that, it's basically the same.
Right. People are noting that there are not even 10,000 hours in a year. Okay, my bad. 8760 hours in a year. That sounds so small. Oh yeah.
And you're asleep for a third of it.
Yeah. I tried polyphasic sleep once for many weeks, and
How did that go?
it was a crazy. I barely remember it. Is the answer to your question?
Brutal.
I was not doing memory formation.
Yikes. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. So sometimes we do this thing where I ask 10 questions off the top of my head to get the thing rolling. So I'm gonna hit you with 10 questions. Whenever you're ready.
Let's go.
All right, man. I'll try to make it
Sure.
interesting. What's like your favorite weather?
Ooh. Favorite weather?
Yeah.
Weather. So I really enjoyed like California weather when I visited. It's kind of cool and breezy, and it's like sweater weather. So where I'm from in Singapore, it's like always sweltering hot and humid. And
Uh-huh.
the thing is, when you're born and raised in that environment, you don't even question it. It's just the way it is. Like if you're sitting outside, you just start sweating after a while, and it's just normal. So I remember when I was having a hot chocolate at like noon in SF outdoors and it was like breezy and nice and chill. Like,
Uh-huh.
that blew my mind. I didn't realize that's possible. I mean, intellectually, you know, but like when you feel it, like,
Right.
so when you step outdoors, it's like outdoors cooler than indoors. Whereas in Singapore, anytime you step outdoors, it's always like you feel the oppressive humidity just kind of sitting on you.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the weather where I'm from, which is kind of tragic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that kind of chill, cool. And I haven't experienced anything colder than that, so maybe I might like, um, something. But I suspect that my tropical bones will suffer.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, I'm gonna keep the questions coming.
What about you? What's your favorite weather?
Oh no, it's my favorite weather. It's my favorite weather. I like to think that I would like the snow. I have this identity that I would like the snow or something like that. But in truth,
Romantic.
yeah, like it's cozy. You stay indoors. You got like a fire kind of thing. But
Right.
since coming back to Chicago, so I lived in San Francisco for a bunch of years. I think like L.A. I think probably L.A. Like
Right.
it's kind of a boring answer, but I think that's what I'd be
Yeah.
into. You know,
Right.
you get
Yeah, I
some
agree.
sunny.
It's just you almost don't need to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the most inoffensive weather.
Right. Plus, you get some. I would get a little tanner if I lived in somewhere like L.A. I imagine, but you know, favorite weather, no weather. Okay, favorite sea creature.
Sea creature.
Yeah.
Just instinctively, my brain jumped to like octopus. I don't know why, but I guess they're cool. They're known to be smarter than people assume, right? And they're all kind of wiggly, and they're very different from mammals, right? So
Right.
I think the romance of the sea or the terror of the sea is that it's so different actually.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of, I feel like the sea is the domain of the octopus in a sense. I mean, there's fish, but fish are fish.
Yeah.
Something about the octopus I find, dramatic and Cthulhu.
Well, related to that, I was going to ask: Have you read any Lovecraft or read much Lovecraft?
Ah man, I think I might have skimmed a bit back in school, but I don't recall. It's all like secondary, like reading blog posts about Lovecraft. But
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually sat down and read
Yeah.
his actual work in detail.
Well, a convenient thing about Lovecraft is he has a bunch of short stories, so you can get through one in 20 minutes or whatever. Um,
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe I should.
Basically, because he's very freaked out about the sea. He's very aware of how terrifying and unknown it is. Okay, wait. Next question. Let me see. Okay, this is a weird question. I don't know why this occurred to me. What's your favorite material, like for clothes?
Ooh. For clothes.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, like so there's like what I think is cool. So I think velvet is cool, but I don't know if I actually own anything velvet right now, and it's kind of cumbersome and inconvenient. But I like the idea of it. It's like the luxurious sort of. I'm thinking of like I don't know, like a Willy Wonka top hat kind of.
Right.
Like you just want to touch it.
Yeah.
But I don't actually wear velvet. I don't think I have any velvet, but it just seems like the cool cloth material. Corduroy. Yeah, velvet's sexy. That's true.
Yeah. He has a good name. No, that's true. Dalton says, as a guy who spent thousands of hours underwater, the ocean is mostly just shrimp.
It was mostly shrimp.
I'm gonna contest that and say that it's mostly water.
Ooh, shots fired.
Shrimp make popping
Those
noises.
creatures. What have you been doing? Why have you been spending thousands of hours underwater, Dalton? Are you like a scuba diver?
After thousands of hours
What
underwater, you
brings a
are the
man?
water.
Ah.
Shrimp.
David Foster Wallace reference.
Okay,
Ah.
this is embarrassing. Who's David Foster Wallace?
he was an author. He wrote Infinite Jest,
Okay.
and
Okay.
he was an essayist, and he committed suicide in like 1997 or something like that. And he had some good riffs about depression and the guy, you know, is like a very smart guy, and he struggled, and it's just kind of it's like a bit of a cautionary tale, a bit of a sad story,
Yeah.
and you know, he tried to be optimistic, but I think he struggled, like he had like brain chemistry issues, and I don't know the specifics, but
Yeah.
kind of a tragic figure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Dalton says he works on submarines. Holy shit.
That's a cool job.
Dalton, have you seen Das Boot?
Like,
You've probably seen Das Boot. That's probably a really annoying question, but I have to ask. Beckman says DFW went off his meds when he went back on. They didn't work like they used to. Yeah. Yeah, that's rough. Okay, what was that? 4 questions or so? Okay, Visa, what's like a weird thing you think about that you're pretty damn sure you've never shared, at least on the public internet?
Share a lot of stuff, so it's hard to say.
I know this
Weird
is a
thing
cheap
that
question.
I think about that I haven't shared. That I haven't shared. I share most things, so.
So it doesn't have to be a thought. It could just be like a mind space that you don't feel like you've channeled yet, or something like that.
That's a useful prompt. I guess, yeah. So having a thing that I haven't channeled as well as I would have liked, I think, is that it's not always obvious in a Twitter thread or in a YouTube video or whatever that I'm always conflicted with myself and always questioning myself, which I think is a pretty common human experience, but it's hard to convey in a single train of thought. So it's like anytime I'm saying something, I'm in my head, I'm also kind of thinking and saying the opposite thing. One way I kind of been experimenting with this is by using one of my alts to disagree with me on my main, which is kind of schizophrenic, but also somehow I think more accurate of more representative of the inner experience. And I think, you know, one of the kind of tragic things about Twitter in general, or maybe media in general, is that people see other people's utterances like as standalone things, and it always, when you just read a sentence that someone wrote, you don't see all the thinking that goes into it, or you don't see the hedging, or like, you know, like on the other hand, so it's people I think get the impression that other people are more kind of single-minded than they are. Like it's almost the problem of communication, right, or of utterances. Like you can never articulate everything that you're thinking, and so you're always kind of choosing what to say, you're always editorializing, and so it's kind of that chaotic all things at once, multiple perspective kind of thing.
Right. Okay. Here's a question. How, and I'm kind of interested in this question a little bit from like a business perspective, but like, is there any way that you would change the Twitter platform if you could?
Oh, so many things, man.
Yeah.
You know, but I understand why Twitter makes the decisions that it does. Like, you know, if it were mine to kind of mess around with, I think a lot can be done to help users kind of have a better, I'm gonna say P2P experience, or like you know, like just managing your own followers better and looking through. So, for example, if you click on your own profile and you scroll through your followers, it's just not designed for you to, like, the user experience of going through your followers. It's not. They haven't put any thought into it. Like, they don't expect you to actually go and check on all the people that you are following, or all the people that are following you. And you know, there's like one of the most interesting bits of information on Twitter that doesn't get surfaced but you can look it up, but it's just very tedious to look up. Is okay. Let's say you have, and the more followers you get, the more crazy this becomes, right? Is when you click on some new person's profile, someone you've never met before, and they are following people who are following you. Like that's a very valuable piece of information because
Yeah.
the people. So let's say like if we just met for the first time, the people you are following who are following me are the people that I would want to know. So if I want to hang out with you or get to know you, I would want to know who they are so that I can ask them to make an introduction, right? Or I can, like kind of, let's say we have a mutual friend like 𝕬𝕚𝕚, right? And let's say you are following 𝕬𝕚𝕚 and 𝕬𝕚𝕚 is following me. And I can be like, hey, 𝕬𝕚𝕚, like, can you introduce me to Michael? And Twitter does not do anything whatsoever to help you with that. Like it doesn't surface those people. You might have to scroll down like thousands, like hundreds of people before you find who is following you back.
Right. Wait,
And
now
if they surface that information more easily, it'll be super fun to click around other profiles to see who you have in common.
so it's just like more visibility into the actual state of the network, basically.
Yeah, and let's say being able to search by location, search users by location, being able to search bios, like people who are following you by their bios.
Right.
And just, there's all kinds of interesting information that exists on the platform, but doesn't get surfaced and it's not something you can kind of play around with. Other things. But I'm pretty happy with threads and quote tweets. So like before, quote tweets only happened like, so you've been able to quote tweet for a while. It only started surfacing quote tweets in the interface like last year maybe, or like a year and a half ago, where now when somebody quote tweets you, you can click on quote tweets and see all the quote tweets. Like that was a great feature that they introduced fairly recently.
Yeah.
Being able to search retweets would be helpful. But again, like I'm such an atypical user that it doesn't make business sense for them to kind of trying to make me happy because so even the following thing that I mentioned earlier, like that is actually in line with Twitter's incentives, because the more mutuals people have, the longer they spend time on the site because they are having conversations with people, and so the more time they have to show them ads. So that's like,
right.
I would pitch that directly to Jack, because I should write like an essay about it or something, because it really does make sense for Twitter as well to do that.
I feel like
people to make it.
I feel like if you wrote an essay about that, you might get some actual like people reading it, right? Like that work there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do have like Twitter product people following me, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Morgan says Twitter still feels like a minimum viable product. That's true. There's a funny argument I think by Venkat, who said something like Twitter's kind of failure at shipping features and stuff, at least like back in the like last year or back in the day, it's almost like it seems like something you'd make fun of, but in a way it prevents them from screwing up their platform the way other platforms sometimes do. Like they so if it isn't broke, like they can always make it worse. So the blessing is, as long as they haven't been making it worse recently.
I mean, the amount of times they've had to say no to new shit is just going to be astronomical, right? Like they're just always having to say, I imagine, right, that they have people pitching stuff internally. Gotta wonder.
And someone is saying inline photo cropping, that would help. Yeah, you were saying?
Yeah. No, I guess I just found myself wondering about like what it's like working at Twitter. Just, I don't know, it just was what I was thinking about. Like, where is there a culture of like, do they tell you don't pitch stuff unless it follows, matches these criteria? Or, I just found myself wondering what the system is or something like that. But, what's up, Jacob?
It's a pretty big case. I visited when I was in SF. Hey, Jacob. And so I have an ex-colleague who works at Twitter, but he works on like on like ads stuff and revenue stuff. So it's not so much user-facing stuff. Yeah. But it's pretty interesting. The funny thing is, it does seem like, I think an old joke was that a lot of the senior management and a lot of the people who work on the product don't seem to be very heavy users of the product themselves.
Uh-huh.
Kind of ironic. I mean, I don't know if it's ironic, but it's a little bit tragic, right? You would hope that, I mean, Twitter being such a globally used app, you would think that you would want to find people on the product team who use it, like kind of, and not just like casually once in a while, but like they use it seriously as a part of their daily use.
Right.
Elton asks if about the review newsletter integration. I haven't looked at it yet. I saw, so like, it's funny. My wife got a notification like when she logs into Twitter on her on web, she gets a pop up that says, "Hey creators, check out this newsletter integration," and I haven't gotten it. Just pretty funny.
I've gotten that one. Not flexing or anything.
Soren says you don't use your own addiction machine. Yeah, you don't get high on your own
That's
supply.
what I'm talking about.
P Zombie asks, do I think their planned tweet tips feature would help or harm? I think that will probably it'll probably help some people. I think it'll help like their kind of OnlyFans adjacent
Uh-huh.
accounts, like which is probably a sizable. A funny thing about all of these platforms is very often the PR that you see about kind of who is promoted or who is talked about is very different from the people who are like driving the revenue and stuff. So like I used to work in a referral software company that was making apps for like Shopify and stuff, and so I got to see a lot of Shopify stores, and like it's amazing how many Shopify stores are like selling those diet teas, and there's like a range of products that's like ridiculously overrepresented that make a ton of money.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of like in the gray area where the regulations and stuff are not super clear. So I think those like nootropics, like those kratom and all of those things,
Yeah.
like those guys are making a ton of money because it's very lightweight to ship, and they can charge a lot for it relative to selling, I don't know, more like bulky items. You're not going to see Shopify's homepage show you, oh, here are the people who make the most money on our platform, and it's
It's all kratom.
like yeah, they don't, it's not really a nice part of the narrative.
Uh-huh.
And similarly, I mean, I it must be funny for like, so imagine you're working at Google search, and like every day it's just like feet, right? People
Right.
just googling
Right.
feet all day, every day. Like when you see the Google year in review, every year they have like a year in review video, and then they're like, oh, this year people searched for the vaccine, people searched for like, no dude, it's feet. Every day people are just searching for feet. Yeah.
Something that just, this is sort of dark, but like something that blew my mind years ago is I met a guy, and I think he was telling the truth, but I didn't know him that well, so who knows. But like he claimed to work at the part of Google where they see like the worst stuff the internet has to offer and like personally filter it. And it's, like gore stuff with kids, like, the darkest stuff. And that was something that just, I was like, oh, holy shit, this is, I just wouldn't have didn't think of it. But it's one of those weird things where you're like, okay, of course, I guess it makes sense. And I don't know, who knows, maybe hopefully they do a lot of that with AI these days. But it's a different entity than expected, I guess.
Yeah. And like I know for Facebook, their moderation, like it's like a bunch of outsourced folks, mostly in like the Philippines. And yeah, they don't get paid very well. They don't get therapy or whatever, and it's kind of bleak. There have been some news articles written up, like investigative journalism stuff written about them, and it's just I mean, they do sensationalize it a little bit, but the underlying truth is still the same, right? Like there's a group of people who every day they wake up and they look at the worst shit, and that's their job.
Yeah.
Designated info hazard viewer. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, seriously, it's like you're like the first line of defense, right, for the rest of mankind using the product.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Let me.
That's crazy.
Let me keep hitting you with questions. So, I'm sure you have a thread about this. I'm second guessing myself because I'm like, fuck, he probably already wrote this up. I'm just gonna push past it.
Yeah, let's go with it.
Let's go with it. Mythological character. Let's say one you identify with or just find interesting.
Identify with mythological character.
And it can be any mythology. Oh, that's a little bit broad.
The first thing that jumps to my mind is I really just like the idea of Prometheus. It's just the kind of trickster. I mean, I don't even know if I know a lot of the specifics of that particular mythology, but just the idea of like stealing fire from the gods, I think is a very, like I think about how if you wrote or if you came up with the myth of Prometheus from first principles today, like, so we already have fire and stuff.
Yeah.
So today, right? Like technology, maybe stealing like AI or something, stealing it's just the idea of kind of there is some kind of power in the world, some kind of magic that is not accessible to everyone, and you kind of steal it. And the gods are upset with you about it because like, oh, it's not supposed, people are not supposed to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the liver part, that's
Do you know?
Yeah, the Wright brothers still
They stole flight from the gods. Do you know the one about the bags of meat with Prometheus?
Vaguely, I kind of recall.
Basically, as I read it, as a kid or whatever, apparently Prometheus goes to Zeus with gifts, and he has two bags, and one of them is a bag of really tasty, good cuts of meat with like guts and discarded parts on top, and the rest is full of like guts and discarded parts and like not the best part of the thing, and then on top is like some nice like ribeye steaks or whatever, and Zeus picks the wrong one, which is interesting metaphysically or whatever, because it shows he's not omnipotent, right? And then it gets really fucking mad,
Yeah.
and then this is probably one of many things that sets up the later punishment.
Oh dear. I do enjoy how the pre-Abrahamic kind of mythologies, just all the gods are so capricious and flight, like they're just fighting all the time, and they kind of there's something I mean, it's very human, I guess. It's more it's I guess you would say they're more relatable, like in general. Like they get jealous, they get lusty, they get angry. And I've been thinking for some time about how, so like it was allegedly like a very bottom up kind of folk stories, people coming up with stuff, and then it aggregates and stuff persists and stuff, and then eventually you get all these archetypes, right? You get the Hermes and the Aphrodite and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been thinking about how that there's a parallel to that with the Wojaks in memes today.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
right. It's like there's the Zeus looking guy, the blonde guy who's saying yes, it's kind of manly.
Yeah.
And then there's like different kinds of like the girl with the choker is a certain archetype, the blonde girl is a certain archetype, and it's almost like we are independently coming up with our own pantheon.
Yeah.
Which is and it's, if you really dig into it, it's the similarity goes all the way through. It's like, it's that they're not real, but in some senses they are a shared template for emotions and feelings and vibes. And I do wonder sometimes, it's like do we go, I think there's a certain hubris or a certain assumption on like historians, or just the way we talk about the past. Like people tend to think of, in the past people were sillier and kind of less mature and more superstitious, and kind of like we don't broadly, I mean, so it depends on who you talk to, but like I think we underestimate how well, maybe our part of Twitter doesn't have this problem, so I'm kind of thinking about like the mainstream population. But like there's this sense that maybe people didn't think about gods as literally as we tend to assume they must have, if that makes sense. It's like I saw someone say something like, a human. So like to person like the concept of a human, like just the ideal of a person with emotions and whatnot, is simply the highest bandwidth model for understanding something. So like we can understand other people better than we can understand almost anything else, because we are people and we're wired to understand other people. So if you want to convey a lot of information, like personifying something can actually be like a very effective teaching tool. So it's like metaphors, right? It's like using the idea of whether it's gods or whether it's whatever it is. When you want to make an idea kind of accessible, and so I guess what I'm circling around is the idea that the concept of ancient gods, like it may have been a bit of almost like a platform for discussing ideas rather than a vehicle, rather than just a pure like, oh, there's a guy in the sky and when he gets angry there's rain or something like that.
Right.
Like and there's probably a range of different responses, like maybe like educate, like the intelligent thoughtful people would have thought about it at that level, and maybe like illiterate farmers or something would be like, oh no, Demeter is angry.
Yeah.
But yeah,
this is one of those interesting things because it's yeah, I'm super interested in the like parsing out what they actually believed, and I mean it's also even in like Christian or like Judeo-Christian, monotheism. Obviously, it's not just one thing, but there are like different levels of sophistication, if you want to call it that, but like different levels of like a man in the sky versus like this super intricate metaphysical account of like causation and like whatever it is, right, that like Augustine's talking about or something like that. I sometimes think the way it works is that there's sort of the best form of the ideology, and then there's like the governing form of the ideology, where the governing form is the one that's adoptable by more people.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting.
That's true. Yeah. I also feel like there's some parallels with like fashion. So if you look at, and this is something you can think of in the time scale of decades, right? Like if you look at like fashion from several decades ago, it often barrel roll, nice. It often looks like as in we don't know the context, so we see these images out of context, and so it often looks weird or silly or strange, like, oh, why is the hair so big, or why are the eyebrows so thin, or something. It just seems kind of ridiculous because we're kind of comparing it to what we currently do, whereas in context it's like no fashion trend is kind of in the abstract. It's always in response to whatever it followed. And so it's like a lot of things that look silly out of context, it like made sense as a response to the preceding thing, right? So it's often like a like, oh, like everything's so boring, and no, let's just say everything is so, I don't know, sterile maybe. I mean, it doesn't matter what adjective you pick, but it's just when something is done in response to something and then you take it out of context later on, it can look a lot sillier or stranger and weirder.
Yeah.
And that's true for like all of history, right? So it's like
right.
when you pick and choose out of context, and you can never know the whole context. So
yeah, the also stylized depictions are a whole thing. By the way, welcome Vilified and Lucky the Hyena. Thanks for coming by. I have a read on I guess this would be Greek iconography that I don't know if it is like good or not, but it's just a read I have that you might be interested in. So apparently, Nike, right, is the goddess of victory, and Nike is often depicted as standing in the hand of either Athena or Zeus, right? So Nike's this big, standing in the hand. And my read basically is that this indicates that like victory is subservient to whether, in the case of Zeus, it is like the all father, like the whole order of this, whatever, of the Olympian society. Or in the case of Athena, maybe victory is subservient to strategy, such that it could be held in the hand of the, that goddess. So there's stuff like that I think like, is that read right? No one can really confirm. I don't know. But you do see it a bunch of times, so it looks weird at first, right? Because you're like, why is there this tiny person in their hand? But yeah, I think there's a lot of good work to do in like interpreting art and stuff from the past that like would kind of humanize it more. Like,
Yeah, and there's like entire frames of like it just as how when we look at modern comics or we look at even like road signs, right? There's a language to it that we understand almost intuitively because we just so immersed in it. But like there may be like things that we've forgotten, and
Yeah.
so like just so I'm thinking when you mentioned Nike in the hand of Zeus or Athena, I'm thinking that vaguely feels familiar slash similar to some Hindu kind of iconography, but I mean I can't think of a specific thing. But yeah, there's probably like so like a person being in another person's hand, like iconography wise, probably means something that maybe it's not like maybe to like people from a few hundred years ago it was just obvious, and then now we
Yeah.
kind of sort of forgotten it.
yeah.
Like how I always think about how so I first had this insight. It's not really an insight, but like this experience of when I visited my grandfather's farm in India. So it's like kind of like out of the in the woods sort of, and then there was like a full moon. I was like, and there's no artificial lights around, right?
Yeah.
And then when I saw the moon, I was like, holy shit, like that's so epic. Like that's why. And then it just kind of, oh, that's why there's like poems and songs and everything written about the moon, because when there's nothing else around, it looks freaking
Crazy.
like celestial. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
it's heavenly, right? But then now when you have like street lights that are just as bright or brighter, you see the moon, you're like, it's the moon. It's just there.
Right.
And so like it's like we don't have the context for how. And then you think about when you see like imagine seeing a solar eclipse like a couple of thousand years ago and you have no idea what the fuck's happening.
Oh yeah.
Right, that would have been
Or dude, at the beginning of the pandemic, I started reading about the Black Death because I wanted some historical comparison. But like, there's Barbara Tuchman is this historian who's awesome, and she has this book like the tumultuous 14th century, I think it's called, and she talks about how the theories going around about what was happening included like that there were sheets of fire like out somewhere that had like burned up the air, and that was like killing people here, or that like massive numbers of fish had died under the ocean because of like an earthquake under the ocean, and that like the miasma of their like dead bodies was killing people, and of course all the divine like God is punishing us type stuff. She's talking about people taking like poultices made of ground up rubies and emeralds and just like stuff that's never going to work. It's called The Distant Mirror. Blunderbuss says it's called Distant Mirror. But anyway, I whenever you get like a little moment of like, oh, this might have been a little bit of like what it was like to live back then, that's the best shit. Moon is goddess.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I wonder if the moon is ever a male in any tradition. I kind of doubt it because of the whole.
I think at least one. I vaguely recall.
Yeah.
Let's find it. Has the moon ever been a man?
Riddle Duel says, "Moon is a goddess. Of course, man wants to get in there." It's a good read.
Yeah, Japanese. The Japanese Tsukuyomi. Inuit. A bunch.
Is this like Japanese, or is this like Ainu, like pre Japan, indigenous? God.
That's an interesting question, and I'm not sure.
Roaring Poet says the moon is grammatically male in German. That's interesting.
Interesting.
Tsukiyomi is questionably male, says Lithros. What about Princess Kaguya? I thought Princess Kaguya was like supposed to be the moon, or I don't know enough about this. There's a movie by Studio Ghibli after Miyazaki left, I guess. But it's still good. Oh, she just went to the moon.
We are flying over Australia.
Yeah. Also, by the way, I have options if you're into this stuff, Visa, so I can make it like, dusk. I can move the sun around in the sky. I feel like a god, like I have power here.
Move the sun around. Amazing.
We could turn on lightning.
That's amazing.
I'm not seeing the lightning, but maybe it'll show up. It's a little weird though. Anyway. Yeah, Sunny's good. Visa. So I feel like we're properly warmed up. I feel like an hour in we're properly warmed up. So I guess I do have. I'm trying to think like what am I curious about? And I want to know some things about how you're thinking about like community, if that's the thing you're thinking about, and with the friendly, ambitious nerds thing. Like, I kind of want to know like where do you think we're at? How's it going? Like, what challenge do you think like we are collectively facing? Assuming sort of that like, I think a bunch of people kind of want more of like a unified interaction or more and more social fabric, more and more like good stuff like that happening. And I see you as helping to set the stage for that. So I'm kind of curious to kind of know a little bit like a State of the Union address or like what's on your mind in that area.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for seeing that. Yeah, I think more social fabric is a pretty general and accurate thing of what people want. There's a quote that always sticks with me and it was like a post about like fascism and neoliberalism, which I don't even remember the specifics about, but there was a quote that was like, fascists understand that human belonging is a basic human need, or belonging is a basic human need, and that fascists understand that very intuitively, and they were saying neoliberals don't. I mean, when I end up riffing it, I just say like the rest of us don't appreciate this as much as we should. Like, it's just people are social creatures, and they will do really almost anything for a sense of belonging, right? Like, the sense of for people who don't feel like they belong, it's like nothing else matters, right? Why should I care about the world if I don't belong in it? And so
Totally.
but that's a specific thing. But broadly, yeah, I think there's a general. Well, the challenging thing about talking about this is that it's also subjective from each person's individual point of view. But I think most people would agree that there is a general sort of dis-ease and malaise and you could even say it might be largely a function of the media landscape. And again, I don't mean to like single out media players or media institutions or people working in that. I mean, it's just super broadly, even if there were no news organizations, I think if Twitter or YouTube were the only ways that people communicated with each other in general, in mass, and even if you didn't have kind of algorithms and stuff to reinforce outrage cycles and so on, I think it is very natural for people to fixate on bad outcomes, like which goes back to like evolutionary biology or whatever, right? Like we are wired to worry about threats, and so if 99% of the time things are going well and 1% of the time things are going poorly, we will fixate on that 1%, and understandably so. But when we are kind of in an environment where in a social environment where that 1% gets amplified over and over again, it does have like effects. It does kind of get reinforced, and people worry about it, and then they trust each other less, and then it becomes a more hostile environment, and then it has that circular effect on like mass psychology. And we have not yet evolved or developed kind of social norms for managing those things effectively. It's almost like psychological sewage. I sometimes think of it as. It's like you need systems. We don't yet have the systems to manage the it's kind of disgusting, but the truth of it is even more disgusting than the metaphor, which is like imagine someone finds like the most disgusting toilet in a city, like in the whole city, like whatever is the most disgusting,
Yeah.
and they scrape up whatever is in it, right? And then they just bring it to your like living room table and they slam it on the table.
Right.
And so that's disgusting. And then but like that is what's happening at like a psychological level for like the entire species, you could say your whole country or whatever. And people kind of see it as, oh yeah, that's just the news, right? Like it's just we need to know what is the worst thing happening in whatever country at whatever time. And I do wonder if one of the reasons I think city states are slightly, I'm born and raised in a city state, so I'm kind of biased to like city states, but like
Yeah.
right, like the bigger your country, the more you're guaranteed bad news just by sheer numbers, right? Like I remember
Totally.
when I was visiting my granddad, and I was just everywhere I go to local papers, because it's always interesting to see how local news is. And it's like in a country like India, which is like even like 4 times the population of the US, like every page in the newspaper is like, oh, people burned, people raped, people like just horrific shit.
Right.
And you're like, oh man, that's terrible. But it's like 1 billion people, so like no matter what, like the most horrible thing you can imagine is happening to someone somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's just there isn't an incentive to kind of contextualize things, and so it's really like this open loop of the worst. And so and I guess you could say in some degree maybe like churches and whatever the equivalent are sort of were supposed to provide a kind of a counterbalance to that, maybe like so I think that, so to kind of switch gears a little bit, a thing that I'm really happy about is the increasing prevalence of dudes rock as a meme.
Yeah.
Just people sharing stories. And the thing is, there was a period of time where women who had bad experiences with men, and again, these are their real experiences and their real stories, they would share what happened to them, and they would say, to cope with their pain, they would say things like men are trash. And I understand where that's coming from, right? Again, it's like we all want to see that stuff happen less and less, and ideally, go away. But like when that is the like the most kind of like the brightest star in the sky, right? Like that, then for people who are like young people who haven't yet had any experiences with the world, like that becomes your expectation of what interactions are going to be like. And then again, there's that spiral. And so for a long time, I think a lot of guys were like, oh no, not all dudes are like that, which is true, but like when you say it, it comes across as a refutation, which then creates hostility and suspicion. Whereas like when you independently just point to dudes rocking and then you just say dudes rock, it's like it's we're not denying your experience, but we're demonstrating that the picture is bigger than just the word. Like we are, as a society, we are more than the worst shit that we do, and we are more than like what is right. And that's a great example, I think, of a I don't even want to say a counter, because it's a complementary, right? It's a yin and yang, and like we shouldn't be. One of my things is like, life is pain and suffering. Yes, it's like tragic, but it's also funny and comedic. And if you're only suffering and you're only crying, you're only experiencing like half the picture, and there's this whole other half that's there to be experienced. And yeah, I think that half is kind of underrepresented, under discussed, and yeah. So I try. So I see that as kind of a gap, and it's almost like a bit of a public service. But I don't wanna I don't wanna get too. It's possible to get kind of preachy about this, and then that becomes its own kind of pain in the ass.
Right.
Hey, Karma Custodian, what's up? I feel like I've deviated from what you're asking. You're asking like a State of the Union. I think I think what the hypotheses that I feel like I've validated on Twitter and on the internet in general. So like when I was a teenager, I was like, oh man, the internet looks awesome, and it's like a library that I can publish in and participate in directly, and like I can go on forums and I can say things and people will reply. Like to me, that was mind blowing when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then, but that that was fun throughout my teenage years or so. But by the time I was like in my early to mid 20s, I was like, but is that it? It's like it's just kind of superficial engagement and like a very very small handful of people. I kind of wanted more, and so like I kind of think of the way I do my Twitter and my online presence. It's sort of like a big experiment slash performance art thing where
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what happens if you try what I'm trying, right? And it could be there could be survivor bias, there could be chance or luck or something in the thing. But and I encourage other people to do the same so that I can see if the experiment works. And broadly, I would say it does. It works that if you kind of should decide to provide this a social environment for other people to kind of plug into and play in, and then you kind of do the work of moderating out like people who are kind of I don't want to say toxic, but
Scaring the
just,
hose. No, sorry. Not that.
yeah, stop the people who are scaring the host, and you just kind of nurture that. Over time, it does create a space where people feel comfortable to be psychologically intimate with each other and stuff. And there is a lot of value in that. I like, so stuff that I haven't said because it sounds crazy to say it, but I think that is more valuable than like conventional therapy, for example, right? And when I say conventional therapy, I mean that's like, you go to meet someone in a room or now these days it's on Zoom or whatever, right? And then you talk through your problems. That can be helpful, but like you don't necessarily carry that with you to the rest of your life. I mean, if you do the work for that, that's great. But like yeah, I'm pretty strongly invested in this idea of like this very social environment model of everything. Actually, I was gonna say social model environment of change, but it's a social environment model of experience, of existence, of it's like you are the average of the 5 people you hang out the most with or whatever, right? Like
Right.
when I was a teenager, I used to hang out with musicians who all smoked cigarettes, and I also smoked cigarettes, and I tried to quit sometimes and I couldn't. And then when I started work, like all of my colleagues were like these computer nerds and none of them smoked. And so I felt initially I would go out for smokes once in a while at work, and then I would come back smelling of smoke, I guess. And none of them said anything about it, but I could see like a little bit of discomfort, like just like they're not trying to, they don't want to make me uncomfortable, but it's just my, like, it's just unpleasant for them. And witnessing that alone was enough to make me like, these guys don't smoke, it's not nice for me to smoke and then show up and sit next to them. So then I started kind of only smoking in the morning before I left my house, and only smoking after I left work at the end of the day. And that didn't feel difficult at all. Like, it didn't feel like during the work hours when I hadn't smoked, it didn't feel like I was craving a cigarette or whatever. And I feel like that what I just described, I think that is like an understudied and under-evaluated kind of phenomenon. Like, so I'm just describing one specific thing, right? Like a guy who smokes doesn't smoke around people who whatever. Like it becomes easier in some way, and I don't know what the kind of psychological pathways or whatever are for that.
Yeah.
But the more general hypothesis there is that we can modify our behavior to suit other people if we want, like to some degree. I mean, again, it's like if I tweeted that, people be like, oh, are you saying that these like impulses and needs are not true? Like, no, it's complicated. I don't know the specifics, but there is something interesting there. And I have witnessed people who have told me that just by hanging out on our part of Twitter, they've become less disagreeable, they've become less angry, and that's amazing. It's like, it's really we I mean, like, it's probably good that we don't oversell the story, because then you get people who are like seeking quick and easy solutions, and then it gets bloated with kind of low effort folks. But like, I do think that we're on to something remarkable, like pretty truly remarkable. And so I am eager to see this experiment continue and expand, but not like too aggressively to the point where it's like I am always wary of like if you get too excited and you try to grow too fast, like then it spirals out of control and then it goes bad in some way. So I think that the only reasonable growth strategy is like slow and steady, and so is you kind of you have to make sure that everyone involved kind of understands the foundational principles of being a decent person and encourage them to start their own versions of their own thing for their own interests and whatnot. And yeah, I'm excited. I do feel like even if in the grand scheme of things you're like, oh, climate change is unavoidable, like everybody has some apocalyptic narrative, right? Whether it's the heat death of the universe will claim us all in the end, or a rogue AI is going to get us all in whatever. And like, yeah, there's a bunch of these kind of great filters that could conceivably wipe us out, maybe. And I try, to be honest, I try not to think too much about any of them. But it's very, I love the scene in the movie The Titanic when the musicians are playing for each other after they no longer have to play because the ship's going down. And it's like I find that very romantic and beautiful. Like, we are all here for a little while, and if all we do is provide comfort and solace to each other in our final moments, which every moment is our final moment, right? In a sense, like, because life is so short, then like that is kind of worthwhile. I mean, that's not. It's some people see that as kind of romantic and like a sweet gesture. Some people find it kind of nihilistic or no, what's the word? It's kind of despairing or just like defeatist. I think defeatist might be the right word.
Yeah.
And again, it's like there's many layers to it. I don't necessarily wake up every morning and be like, oh, I'm on the Titanic and let's play some music because it's sad and we're gonna die. Like, no, that's just when I am in that bleak state, that is kind of how I think about it. But when I'm like optimistic, I'm like, oh, we can freaking, let's go, man. We can get renewable energy and have a Dyson sphere and space blockchain. Transition to like increase human energy production by 100 times, replant trillions of trees. Like, yeah, so I think it's good to have like healthy states at along the full spectrum of human emotion experience. And yeah, I do think that, so there's a quote by Ben Horowitz, who's from Andreessen Horowitz, right?
Yeah.
And he said the hard thing about anything, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, that is managing your psychology. Like, so, and the way I read that sentence is like, if whether it's running a marathon or it's raising a child or whatever it is that's difficult, technically all of the tasks you perform, it's all just like mechanical, right? So like running an ultra marathon is you put one foot in front of the other and you repeat. That's all there is to it. It's just you keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And you climb a mountain, again, it's mechanical. Everything is mechanical, and mechanical tasks are trivial to perform, but it's the difficult part is managing your psychology, because as you start going, you get stressed, you get worried, you get anxious, you feel like you're not going to make it, you feel like you're wasting your time, you feel like it's meaningless, but like all of those things, right? You feel despair, you fight with your spouse and you're like, is my marriage failing? Like it's all of the negative thoughts. And again, it's not, when I say negative thoughts, it doesn't necessarily mean that negative thoughts are bad, but it's how do you manage those thoughts in a way that doesn't get in the way of doing the work that you want to do, right? And or even if let's say you use the marathon example, you start running a marathon and then you realize halfway, like, oh shit, I did not train enough for this, like my body is not going to be able to handle the rest of this run, like I should stop now. And then you should stop so that you don't hurt yourself, so that you can keep. But then once you stop and you quit, like how do you then run, either keep training or run the next marathon, having experienced that failure, right? So like, and then you have to, it's like a narrative problem slightly. It's like a storytelling thing. Like, how do you frame the narrative for yourself such that failure wasn't final? It doesn't mean that you are a failure, right? It's just an opportunity to get better and try again. And like, so kind of being able to play in that headspace, that's like the skill. And it's the skill by which you you orchestrate all other skills, right? It's the skill of not giving up, basically.
Yeah,
And,
dude.
I mean, so you might be giving up specific projects or giving up specific, like, abandon specific moments, but to not kind of abdicate your entire life. I mean, I think was it Camus, someone who said, like, should I have a cup of coffee or should I kill myself?
Yeah, Camus.
Right?
Yeah.
And Camus, yeah, and it's that basically. It's all variants of that. Like, how do you what does it take to keep going? How do you what do you have to do to keep playing and keep kind of having fun? And I feel like that was probably the dominant struggle of my teenage years first, and then I had like a second version of that when I first started working and I got a job. And I had gotten married. I loved my wife. I loved my job, but I felt like death. Like, it just felt like
Right.
every day my commute was the same, and like, it's my bills. And every day I sit in this chair and look at my neighborhood, which is full of apartment blocks, and it's like it just feels like prison with extra steps, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just the same routine every day, and it just felt so bleak. And like, I'm paying the bills and whatnot, and so somebody earlier, we were talking about David Foster Wallace. Like, in his "This Is Water" speech, he talks about that. He talks about how he's giving like a freshman address or like a graduation address to college students, I think, university students, and he talks about how the trenches of life, right? Like the warfare of everyday life is when. So he goes into wonderful amounts of detail. He talks about you're kind of on the way home from work and you're tired and you're driving and the traffic's horrible, and then you realize that, oh shit, you don't have food at home, so you got to go buy groceries. Then you go to buy groceries, and it's like everyone else there is also doing grocery shopping, and the music is horrible, and it's like your shopping cart's like the wheel is squeaking and it's not going straight.
Yeah.
And it's like you're in the queue, and it's like someone in front's talking on the phone very noisily. Everything is just, it's like, from your point of view, it's like the entire universe is aligned to just fuck with you, right? It's just miserable. And then he says, like, you have that experience once, and it's like, whatever. But then when that becomes like your daily experience, like day after week after month after year, like, it breaks you down, like that. And that is, and I remember watching that when I was like maybe 20 or so, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. And then I remember watching it again at like after a few years of being a working adult, and I was like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
like, I'm a few years in, and shit, this is really the thing, and it's gonna continue to be the thing for decades. And but I also remember thinking, like, that explains, kind of like broken, grumpy, old, and when I say old, I don't mean like, oh, older people are necessarily a certain way. It's just that decades of accumulated kind of misery in like that, those little miseries, they add up if you don't find a way to transmute them.
You're fighting the battle your whole life,
Yeah.
So it just makes sense. Yeah.
And so, like, there's a kind of at the end of each battle, there's like you might win some and lose some. Like, you accumulate scars, right? You accumulate something. There's something that accumulates from every battle. And if you don't have some system for kind of coming out of it renewed and rejuvenated in some way, then you're just gonna keep getting kind of like more and more angry, more and more bitter, and maybe like you start to get chronic neck pain, back pain, and that makes you more miserable.
Absolutely.
And then it's
Absolutely.
And so like when I really internalized that, it kind of hit me that, oh, that's why like my dad's friends drink all the time and complain about their children and all that. It's not really the kids and whatnot. It's like they have been beaten up by life, and everyone gets beaten up by chewed up and spit out, right?
Yeah.
And the central challenge of life is to experience it and not let that happen to you, right? Which again, it sounds simple, but like conceptually it's simple. But like it's Sisyphean, right? It's like you're really to go through it without like losing your hope and without losing your joy.
So I was just gonna throw out there. This is something that I definitely took I mean, I'm not doing too badly. Like, I'm 31. It could have taken me another 10 or 20 years or never, to figure this out. But it's like, I'm a huge Batman fan. Which is not to say that I know everything there is to know about Batman. I think there's better Batman super fans, in the world. But like, if I was gonna pick my superhero for a longer time, it was fucking Batman. And there's this thing about Batman, which is that he's always getting his ass kicked, but like continuing on, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a mixed bag because on one hand he continues on, he's like, you know, breaking bones, he's like getting patched up and he keeps going. On the other hand, it's not ultimately like healing, you know. It's kind of like at the end of some of the comics, it's like, you know, Catwoman's been flirting with him the whole time. I think this is in I'm not going to remember the exact comic, but Catwoman's flirting with him the whole time. But then she says something, and he kind of freaks out because he's getting paranoid because he's been unwrapping the scheme the whole comic. And then she's like, "All right, fuck this. You're too paranoid." And then it sort of ends with him like standing out like by a grave, and it's just like, damn, that's the fucking end. And it's like it took me a long time to realize I needed to have some ideals that were like about healing. You know, it's like. And I don't know if that is in Batman. It's like it just might not be in that story. You know, I might need to find other stories where people like have that, like, you know, of course for men. Like I've seen a couple of your things you talk about, like masculinity and like your thoughts on that. And I don't know too much about exactly where you're coming from on all of that, but like something like needing more of that stuff in your range to be able to not just bite, you know, not just grit your teeth and bear it, but like heal, you know, and figuring out what that means or what that takes. This is what that made me think about that you were saying.
Yeah, and you know, so even the origin story of Batman is like a tragedy, right? Like his parents getting killed, and yet, you know, it's exactly what you're saying. It's like, on some level, his quest for justice in Gotham, like at a kind of symbolical. I mean, you can get into like the funny details about how he's a wealthy guy and like he's trying to do this Cape Crusader shit when he. But yeah, you know, it's all comic stories and whatever. It's really about symbolism and it's not meant to be a literal. Like if Batman were real, they would find him in a day or so, right? With GPS. But it's the idea of it, right? It's mythological. It's like, here's a guy who's been through heartbreaking grief, and he's trying to make up for it by being this protector, guardian of the social environment that caused that pain and grief. And yeah, there are two ways you can read it, right? You can read it firstly as, oh wow, like he is trying to give back to the society that took everything from him. On the other hand, you can be like, oh, you know, he never really heals. Like he just kind of, you know, he is distracted by kind of the day-to-day struggles of Gotham. Or I mean, depending on how you want to tell the story, but like he is. I guess that's the central, like, so you know, so Batman is a platform, right? As a comic, like you might like specific Batman comics, but the truth is Batman, again, he's a myth, and we get to tell the story of Batman ourselves by how we want to play with the ideal of Batman. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, maybe, you know, everybody should write their own Batman story. Just as like, how would you tell the story of Batman, right? Like what would stand out for you? And yeah, so if I were to write a Batman movie or comic book or whatever, I would want to explore that, like, you know, like the tension between being a guardian, right? And so again, it's kind of extreme dramatized version of, it's like the projections of our inner struggles and whatnot, right? It's like, okay, like you gotta kind of be tough and be strong and be prepared and all of that stuff so you can take care of business. But at the same time, it's like, are you too traumatized to kind of like make you know, kind of relax, right? Like if you can never relax, you know, what's the point in a certain sense, right? I'm trying to look for. I have the All-Star Superman comic somewhere here. It's outside. And there's this very nice. So All-Star Superman is great, and by Grant Morrison, right? And then
I think
on
I
the
have
cover,
that.
It shows, right? It shows, the cover shows Superman like sitting like just very chill, like a child, like, you know, just kind of like very. And then the rationale for that is beautiful. It says that you know, if you're the strongest man on the planet, like by a mile, like just, then you don't need to, you know, be like, I'm Superman. Like you don't need to telegraph toughness because nothing hits you, right? Like bullets bounce off you, so you just be completely relaxed all the time. Someone comes and like punches you in the face and they get hurt and you don't feel a thing. Here, so look. It's like, yeah, it's.
I'm trying to pull it up and see.
That was very interesting to contemplate.
Is it this one?
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. Yes,
Here,
it's just so like a baby, right? It's just chill,
yeah, I like. He does
and
look like a
that's such
baby.
a
How do I? This. There we go.
yeah. It's like perfectly relaxed, kind of
Yeah.
sleepy eyed, and like Jesus and Buddha, the images of them, they often have that same kind of sleepy eye thing, which is interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Like this kind of yeah.
Just
So
chilling hard.
it's and yeah, it's just very interesting. How do we get to talking about Batman? Oh yeah, from like the David Foster Wallace thing. It's yeah. So it's about so you could say that becoming Batman is so it's a useful metaphor for like in the first half of my 20s I tried to become the Batman of my own life, right? To deal with the Gotham of my chaos, of my bills and family and whatever else. And I would say I succeeded pretty well. I mean, I wasn't perfect at it, but like I made a lot of progress in getting a lot better at being my own personal Batman. And it made me miserable, I would say. It was really it's like the misery it's that is that it had to be done, right? Like it's like you're keeping the place safe or whatever, but like you're doing it. It's like you don't want, like, it's kind of, you don't want to have to do it. And it's one of my riffs was something like, never assume that a person who is good at playing a game is necessarily enjoying it, because it could be that they don't want to play, right? Like, so I have gotten to a point in my life where I'm pretty good at socializing and making friends with people and all of those things. And a part of me doesn't like it. A part of me is like, people shouldn't have, like, in a moral universe, right? Or in the good place, right? It shouldn't matter. Your sense of belonging and your sense of kinship and all of those things shouldn't be a function of your skill set, right? You shouldn't have to learn how to be a good person so that other people would take care of you. But that's depressingly kind of how the world works.
Yeah.
But the good news is, those of us who are privileged enough to kind of have the strength to, or like, to do the Batman thing, to kind of like, fight away the demons or whatever, like we do that, and then we can create nourishing spaces where we, like, the point of strength, in my opinion, is that you can nourish other people in turn and bring them up and make them stronger, so that they don't have to struggle with like shit fights, and it's like, yeah, it is possible to become, like, you can use like a weight training metaphor or like a gym dojo kind of metaphor, like, a lot of mainstream reality, it's like a bar fight or a street fight or a riot. And it's like, people say things like, oh, if you can't handle the heat, stay out of the kitchen or whatever. Like, why are you such a pussy? Why are you such a whatever? But like, you don't learn a lot in a street fight. It happens very fast. People use weapons. You get stabbed. You're dead. It's like a shit game. Whereas, a dojo is one where we challenge each other and we lift each other. It doesn't necessarily need to be a coddling space, right? There's a whole spectrum between being like a coddling, whatever, like super protective, overprotective space where you insulate people from chaos, and then you go all the way to the other end where it's like you just expose them to chaos entirely and they pretty much suffer and mostly die. And it's like there's this sweet spot in the middle where we can kind of create a semi-controlled environment where people can handle their problems and struggle and communicate and so on. And then it's like lifting weights, so you get stronger, and then you can help yourself, you can help other people. And yeah, I think if the more people we find who can do that, we increase our own kind of executive function, our capacity for doing things, and then we help each other do more things, and then we kind of get into groups of people and we help more people. And then the wish is that as that kind of percolates outwards, like we will see more and more people kind of wake up, sort of, or kind of shake off their shackles. I get very dramatic about it, but it's broadly true, I feel.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That was, by the way, legendary fucking spiel. I was thinking to myself, like, this dude's a content machine. It's not surprising. But
Yeah. I mean, so most of this stuff is like it's so when I was on my commute every day throughout my 20s, I was like, I think a funny thing that happens is that sometimes people who don't know me see me on Twitter, like people who encounter me for the first time, and then they're like, "What the fuck is this guy on about?" And I do understand the impulse to have that thing, because if like there's so much bullshit and like grifters and fakers around, right? That when
Right.
you see someone kind of being earnest, like probability tells you that the guy is probably likelier to be like a bullshitter than earnest, right? But you
Right.
can. I actually was journaling publicly for a long time on my blog, that is my 1,000 word vomits blog, and like the reason I have so much content and whatnot is that I kind of struggled through that shit a lot, and so a lot of what I'm saying these days is really just downstream of that. And it helped me. So you can go and look up like these old YouTube videos of myself being. You can see the kind of defeat and despair in my body language,
Right.
and that's gone. And like,
I
that
really do like, by the
is-
way, I don't remember like which exactly of your tweets this is, but like where you're basically showing yourself physically from years ago when you were like weren't doing as well, basically. I don't know. That speaks.
Yeah.
That speaks to me. I mean, that's just like you can see it, right? You can see it on a person's body for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. It's crazy, and I don't know if I saw it at the time. I guess you
Yeah.
need the contrast, right? You need to see, like when you're living in filth, that you don't know that you're living in filth because the filth is all you know, right?
Right.
So being able to see the contrast is really life changing. And so there's so many levels to this. I remember, so when I first met my boss, my ex-boss, who was like life changing for me, so he was smart and kind. And before I met him, all the smart people in my life were assholes, and all
Yeah.
the kind people were kind of like nice and stupid. And so I thought that was the choice I had to make. Like either if I want to be smart, I got to hang out with assholes, and I'm gonna be an asshole. Or if
Right.
I want to be kind, I'm gonna hang out with these kind of touchy-feely idiots. And like I didn't want to be what I thought was an idiot, so I hung out with the smart assholes. And wow, there were pros and cons to that. But like only when I met my boss, I was like, oh shit, I can have like the best of both worlds. Like, why did nobody teach me this or whatever until I was like 21, 22?
Right.
And yeah, and that was so revolutionary for me. It's like, it would be worth, if I don't do anything else in my life, I think if I just kind of embody that spirit, and even if like 9 in 10 people don't get it, if like 1 in 10 people I interact with get something out of it, and they bring that energy to themselves and
Yeah.
kind of shake off their own like that's a worthwhile life. So that's in my frame, because I remember when I was struggling and I had no one to help me. So it's like so like why does Visa tweet so much? Why is he so public? Because I needed someone to show me shit, and nobody did. So it's like I'm always thinking
Right.
about the other people like me who need to see someone like me, and not necessarily
sure.
me. It's not like get a load of me, but just see someone who's kind of flourishing in some way.
Yeah. I got a question sent in. So someone made this comment the other day, and I laughed my ass off. And I don't necessarily want this to become a meme or something, but someone started talking about all the Discovers and the Mastercards. So that is a meme about Visa imitators. So glad you.
Wait, say that again.
All the Discovers and the Mastercards. Let me. I laughed my ass off when I fucking heard that. So, let me read this question sent in anonymously. So, and take it, spin it how you will. I don't know if this is a good question or not, but does Visa feel responsible at all for those Discovers and Mastercards that he inspires? It feels somehow connected to the thing he said earlier about people are coming up hearing men are trash, so we have to counteract that with dudes rock. How does he feel about young people coming up who haven't had his experiences, so they don't know that there's a good intention under his egotism, narcissism, whatever you want to call it? So all they know how to do is become GPT-3 bot gurus who start mini cult followings that they don't know what to do with. Okay, so that's a whole lot of stuff. But if you want, I don't know if anything there inspires something that is you'd want to respond to.
Yeah, I mean, so again, like a funny thing is that people underestimate how much I've thought about everything.
Yeah.
And I've thought about, so I delayed my current act or performance or whatever. And when I say act or performance, I don't mean something fake or insincere, but just this deliberate kind of state of being. It's a deliberate way of being. It's like busking, right? I think busking is probably the best analogy I have for what I do. And I worried for a long time. I did as much reading as I could, as much research as I could about what people did in the past, and how movements work out, and how people with good intentions end up screwing things up, and all those things. And the thing about, and it's kind of cute and flattering that people allegedly imitate me, because the point is, and I guess this is true for anybody who is seen as some kind of public figure or whatever, because the point is that you shouldn't want to be Visa. You should want to be yourself. You should want to be the fullest version of yourself. But anyway, I do also think that imitation is the beginning of how we learn anything. And we learn language that way, we learn to walk that way, and I have a longer time scale view of everything than like 95% of people who talk to me or look at me and stuff. And sometimes people think sometimes people get annoyed with me in ways that didn't make sense to me until I realized that they're using a completely different frame, which is that people think things like, oh, I'm trying to score status points in usually it's people thinking it's like the Silicon Valley kind of thought leader group or something. And that's so far removed from anything that I really care about that it doesn't even occur to me that that's what they think, that's what someone might think I'm doing. But it's do I feel responsible? I have thoughts about this, like how much responsibility should I have for, let's say, other people bullying other people in my mentions, right? So and when that happens, I instant block. I've blocked people that I liked because they were bullying someone else in my mentions, because I feel that my mentions should be a place where people treat each other with kindness. So I've like lost connection with people that I kind of liked because they were being cruel. But as for kind of GPT-3 fake visas, my wish is that it's a transitionary phase and that they will tire of it and they will eventually find their own voice. And I remember in like 2007, like if you read my super old blog posts, I think I used to read Tim Ferriss's blog, and I don't know if I was consciously trying to do it, but like just reading his blog, and his blog post titles were like like lessons I learned from trying to do some great thing or whatever. And since that was just what I saw when I was writing my own blog posts, and now that I look at those old blog posts, I realized, I was like copying his format of his titles and stuff.
Totally.
But I don't think anybody would describe me today as, Visa is like a Tim Ferriss imitator. Like, I mean, like in the sense that we are both kind of public, sure, but like we have very different, and we have some overlapping interests, but like fundamentally the things we talk about, like just the vibe is different. And I'm not to knock on his vibe, but it's like, I don't think it's possible to copy anyone else all the way through completely for a long time. So like in a sense, we become ourselves through our shitty imitations of other people. And so I would encourage people to read more, right? So if someone is being a shitty Visa imitator, I would encourage them to find more other people to imitate at the same time. And then you imitate like a dozen people at once, and you do 100 riffs of those things, and then along the way you will develop your own voice. As for cult following, that's the worrisome part. Like if people are kind of using utterances that are kind of, you can use the language of open-heartedness and the language of friendliness and whatever to kind of bait people in and kind of encourage them to be vulnerable and whatnot, and then kind of become a predator and pounce on them. So that's fucked up. That should not. If I see that happening, or if someone sees that happening, and they point it out to me, I try to intervene in a way that I think is correct. And really it's about maximizing other people's agency. It's about encouraging other people to be free, to not kind of make demands of people, right? To always, I really like, so there's this YouTuber guy called Elliot House, and he's like this muscle guy, meathead. Yeah. And he kind of jumped the shark recently, and he kind of got weird. He's become all like, he had like a Trumpy face, and then he became, I don't know, he got strange. But there was a period of time where I kind of admired him when he was, for some reason, more introspective and thoughtful and stuff. And he had a phrase that I really liked, which he said, "I invite you to consider." Like he would use that very, it's like almost like a verbal tick for him. He would say, "I invite you to consider how these things are. I invite you to consider your relationship with your dad. I don't know. I invite you," and I'm like, "Oh, that's such a," he's not demanding anything of you. He's not insisting anything. It's a choice. Like you get to choose what you want. And there was a period of time when I was like researching cults to understand what the fuck was up. And like there's like 12 or so variables, I think, or maybe a fewer than that, of what defines a cult. And it's things like, you like one, the leader is an unquestionable authority. Okay, so like let's invert each of those things. Like one, question the leader. He's a human. He's not a king or a god or whatever. And then two, it's like, the cult tries to isolate you from all of your friends. Okay, let's invert that. Let's make sure that anybody who participates in this sphere, you are encouraged, you're invited to go back into your own life, talk to your mom, talk to your friends, and not talk to them about this experience that you're having, but listen to them,
remain
listen
connected
to everybody else, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's a shame about what happened to Elliot. I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, it's like there's that parable of the horses, right? Like, who knows? Somebody who's being strange right now, like they might have some redemption up down the line. I think it's important to always, well, not always, but like to at least be mindful of the possibility of redemption. Although sometimes if you overdo that, you end up being a sucker. So life is always infinitely complicated.
I feel like it's hard, right? Because one thing that I often think about, and I have not tweeted too much about this, because it's a little bit hard to talk about. But it's sort of like, I don't know. I guess 𝔽𝕝𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚's talking about like how billionaires are like an oppressed class, and there's this sort of element of like, I think people put humongous pressure on basically leaders to be away, and it's this mix of it's good because maybe that, because they have power, because they affect people, and at the same time it's like you can't make everyone a saint. You can't make them perfect. They'll never be perfect, right? So I'm interested in part because like I'm very concerned with like making sure that my mindset is compatible with being able to be successful. And this is one of those things where I think I at least partially got it from the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which
Nice.
It's just like it's a really great depiction of like, if you have a bad mindset about money, if you think money's evil, you're probably not going to make much money. And it's just like, that just makes sense. So I like the idea of like sort of imitation is a it's not an end point. It's like if someone goes there, maybe the answer is keep going on their path, not necessarily to imitate you or whoever more and more, but just to keep being them and keep figuring out why they're going there and like what's next. The one case I think about is this interview where Kanye West talks about finding his voice, and he says it was with All Falls Down. It's just this one song on one of his earlier albums, and he's like, that's when I found my voice, and before that I was trying to be other people. I love Kanye West, so I think about this shit all the time, but it's just like,
he's great.
Yeah. To me, the idea of Kanye West who's not being himself, that's an amazing idea, because it sounds so impossible, because that's like his whole brand is how he is. You know what I mean? But really quick, just because we're here, if anybody wants to do a call-in, and Visa, if you're down, we can do call-in. So I do want to invite people to post in the Discord and call-ins, or just jump in the lobby, and I will drag and drop you in. So, we can get you in for a minute, ask a question, just say hello. If anybody's interested in that, so feel free. Let me just check chat really here. Oh, 𝔽𝕝𝕚𝕚𝕚, you're in? Jump in lobby when you're ready, dog. All right, let's get a question from 𝔽𝕝𝕚𝕚𝕚. Hey, dude.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, I'm
Cool.
gonna
Yep.
turn you up a little bit.
All right. Well, yeah, it's good to be back. It was a crazy few days.
Yeah. Yes,
Still
totally.
kind of crazy. My sleep schedule is pretty closely aligned with Visa's right now, despite him
All
being,
right.
you know, not
Young
forced to
dad.
wake up.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with the. Don't mind the. Oh shit, the plane's crashing too. Sorry, I'm gonna fix the. How the fuck am I? Okay, this is fine. We can see Visa's face. When you get off, it'll fix itself to more normal.
this is
All right,
fine.
go for it. Go for it.
All right, so I posted this question in the chat, but it was pretty far up, so I will just repeat it out loud, so you have no choice but to notice and answer it. Visa, my question is, what is the biggest thing you have changed your mind about since you started writing FAN?
Changed my mind about. I don't know. I think. So I haven't had anything like flip in a binary way for quite a while. So it's mostly most changes in my thinking in the past few years have all been like matters of degree, like just something that I thought was of X importance. Maybe now I revise it to be twice as important or half as important, that kind of thing. But what have I changed my mind the most about? So it's more like certain things become clearer and more of a priority for me, or less of a priority. And I mean, so it depends on what frame you want to use. Like for me personally, I think where my mind is at right now is that it's important to have. I mean, I don't know if this sounds mundane, but it's important to have good media. That's what I'm thinking about right now. It's like, so I tweet a lot, but like there are limitations to what you can accomplish with tweets. And lately I've been investigating like golden ages in history and like and scenes from like what scenes have accomplished over the decades and centuries. And I think
I'm gonna flag that topic as something we should talk about at some point, even if we don't necessarily get to this on this episode. It's an amazing topic. It's a very good topic. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's gonna be my predominant preoccupation, possibly forever, for the rest of my life, maybe. But it's like, yeah, it's how can a group of people kind of accomplish more? And so like the way I think about it is kind of, what is the bottleneck, right? Like what is the constraint that is preventing things from happening? And so right now where I'm at, so it started with, okay, golden age, where does the money come from, right? Where does the funding come from? How do you get people to show up? And I where I'm at is, I think it's about storytelling. A nation is just a group of people with a shared story, right? But like the Constitution is a story, right? Just these ideas of justice and rights and whatnot, and religions are stories, blah blah blah. And if you want to reach people beyond just kind of who you can talk to one by one, which is also worth doing. So I mean, it's not a substitute, but it's like a complement. I'm thinking about what media does not exist that should exist, and how do you kind of incentivize that and encourage that? So what have I changed my mind about? It's just I didn't have as much clarity on that until after I wrote the book and started having conversations with people. And it's just I have more insight into the bottlenecks and constraints of people and of scenes, which is that we have to meet people where they're at and kind of articulate people's challenges and struggles in a way that resonates with them. And I mean, I already kind of knew this, but it's just the more I progress along this path, the more that kind of jumps out at me as something that is a massive opportunity that's kind of underappreciated. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for. Like, feel free to ask a follow-up question.
Sure. Like if you're saying that essentially your core values have remained unchanged since you started basically using the internet with a mission in mind, then that totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That leads me to a different question, which might not really apply to you personally, but I'm still curious about your ideas about it. So like, as a writer, a public thinker, you have ideas you've expressed, and you about ways to achieve your goals, and about what people's values should be. And if your ideas were to change, or if someone else who's expressed ideas and then changed their mind about them, do you feel that someone in that position has a responsibility to go back and amend their earlier works and point out that their views have changed? Or should they just leave it as it was, and it should be up to the reader to keep up and figure out what the latest and most complete expression of those ideas is?
I mean, the best we can do is the best we can do, right? So I think there's a quote from maybe Joan Didion. I just shared this quote recently, and I didn't know the source, but she said something like, "Nothing I ever say is the final word on anything," right? So you're always following up, you're always fleshing out more of the picture. And we are, as human beings, we have bandwidth limitations, right? We can never say everything. We don't have the time. We don't have the knowledge. We don't have the bandwidth. So the only, like, I like this phrase someone once said, that's like, only God and to kind of say everything that needs to be said, like it would encompass everything that's ever existed and every perspective that's ever everything, and like it takes infinite long, and it takes infinite effort, and blah blah blah. So like only the word of God is complete, and everything else is incomplete. And yeah, even as a non-religious person, it's like, we are doing the best we can with the limited options that we have. And the magic of art is that periodically you can say something in a short amount of time, in a small amount of space, that really resonates, like kind of crosses the bandwidth barrier. And like, you like there's a haiku, right, that you read and it just blows your mind open. Like that's magic, that you can kind of convey that much. It's like the fact that communication can happen at all is actually insane, right? Like that there's my flesh computer inside my brain, inside my skull, and I can interpret what you're saying. But the thing is, all the words that we each have is pegged to a bunch of different associations, and none of us means exactly the same thing when we use the same word, and yet we manage to approximate an understanding of each other at all. Like, it's amazing that any communication happens and works at all. But that can be a cop out when you're using that to kind of avoid responsibility for how people interpret you, right? So if you think you're saying something, but every single person who hears you interprets it in a different way, then you have a responsibility, I feel, to figure out what the fuck's happening. Like, why is it that you're saying do X and everyone's doing Y? Like, is it that you don't understand the way that, so even if you are thinking that, oh, they don't understand me, if everybody is misunderstanding you, then you are misunderstanding the nature of communication, or the nature of the way the environment is, right? And so there is an obligation to kind of figure out what the hell is going on and to correct for it. But also, it's like, I do think that a lot of these things, it's never fair to demand it of anyone else. Like the work that needs to be done, right? And what the world needs, in a sense, right? It's like, and again, I can say this casually in conversation, but I wouldn't tweet it, because if you tweet it, it's it then becomes difficult to contextualize the utterance, and then it can get messy. But like you can't ask other people to, you can try, but like you can't ask other people to do more than what is sort of socially acceptable, if that makes sense. It's kind of vague, but like you can't ask someone to forgive who has wronged them, right? You can't go to someone who's like suffering and then be like, hey, I know you're suffering, but like it would be really cool if you forgave your enemies and became Jesus, right? Basically, like you can't demand that someone else becomes Jesus. And yet what the world needs is more people who independently choose to try to be more like Jesus, right? Yeah, again, I'm using Jesus as like a metaphor. I'm putting words in Jesus' mouth, but like,
I think those are the words from Jesus' mouth.
yeah, you get the idea, right? Like it's challenging. You can't. People really struggle with this. It's like, and it's kind of like how someone discovers lifting or yoga or psychedelics. There's something they discover, and it's wonderful for them. It improves their life, and it, once they were blind, but now they can see, and then they feel like, oh wow, this changed my life so much. It's my duty to share it with everyone else. And okay, and then you start demanding that people do it, and you start kind of being forceful and pushy about it. And it's like, you kind of missed the point there. It's like you can't force other people to go on their journeys. Like the best you can do is invite them, right? Like, and even the invitation thing, it's like if you're not careful, you can end up being kind of smug about it, kind of pretentious and whatnot. So, but again, we're all human, and like we're all gonna fall short of perfection in some way. Like either we're too pushy or we're not, or whatever. But again, yeah, the best we can do is the best we can do, and then we have to trial and error and try to make amends for our mistakes. And I mean, to answer the question directly, the question about like if people misunderstand you, should you, or if you find out that you were wrong about something, should you go and fix it? Yeah, I think so. Like if you feel that, like I do think that there's a lot of value in kind of and it's not even a matter of like obligation in some kind of tedious, boring way. It's like if you found out that you were wrong about something, that's very useful information. It's very interesting information as well, like to find out what you were wrong about. So like when I was in my early 20s, I used to try and bully myself into becoming a better person, and I succeeded in some ways and I failed in some ways. And there are things about that I only understood like almost a decade later. And nobody needs to tell me, Visa, you better go back and review what you said like 10 years ago that was wrong, and then you better fix yourself, right? I'm like, I mean, I am gonna do it because it's interesting, like and because I like to be less wrong, right, or more right, or whatever, however you frame it. It's just whatever is progress is interesting.
I actually do have a question about that, though. Lithros, did we hit yours adequately?
More than adequately.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thanks for calling in, dude. Anytime. Anytime. The question I have is sort of like, how bad can a person fuck up in sharing really stupid thoughts on the internet? And obviously there's like cancellation, cancel culture. I feel like I have a sense of like how that works and what that's about, so it's not quite as interesting. I just mean a bit more like, like you wrote this essay, 5 years ago, where you sound like totally like messianic, like you're gonna set the world on fire, and like you are like the fulfillment of the prophecy of the whatever, like something really wacky and like that way. Or maybe it just sounds really stupid. I guess I'm kind of curious about, since you're super prolific, right, in that way, you got to keep expressiveness, but there's some concern about like messing it up. I mean, is the answer kind of just like do your best, but you have to remember to express yourself, or do you have like a different reaction there?
It's a good question. I think it varies tremendously depending on things like your personality, your risk profile, a bunch of variables like that.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of project management things you can do to kind of mitigate failure. So like one very simple thing that anybody can do is you have a public facing thing, and you have like a more private alt of sorts, and then or literally an alt, right?
Yeah.
And then you workshop your more uncertain and tentative thoughts with trusted friends first,
Right.
and then you have like that. So that's one. It may not be perfect because if all of your friends are all from a same kind of background or same perspective, and then if your thoughts kind of reach a broader audience than you originally intended, then there's a baptism of fire moment where you find out that there's this whole other group of people that you've never considered before who all
Right.
think that you're a horrible person. Like that
Right.
can happen.
Right.
But I think as long as you display good faith, and so there's like a faith in humanity aspect to this, right? Like and I don't have I cannot speak with certainty actually. So it's like what I'm doing is kind of an exploration, and it's kind of a leap of faith, right? It's like I'm I am enacting my leap. I'm doing a trust fall into the species, right? I'm trusting that if I continue on this path and I say what I think, and I have these caveats like, oh, I'm trying my best. I'm probably wrong about a bunch of stuff. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Please try and be kind to me. I'll try and be kind to you. Like I have all these things. There's still a chance that I might say something that somehow is just dramatically offensive to someone or some group of people that is in some way that I had not foreseen and in some way that they consider unforgivable.
Totally.
It's possible. I think the odds of it are vanishingly small because just the kind of scope of mainstream human conversation is it's kind of knowable. I think like if you spend a few years kind of reading history and reading just kind of a bit of philosophy, a bit of politics, a bit of like just what are the general things that people have kind of thought about and stuff. Like you can do most of the reading, and I'd say a couple of years you can get up to speed, like on like what the kind of what would you say the breaking points or the boiling points are, and you can kind of avoid them.
The bannable offenses.
But sorry, say again.
The bannable offenses is how it occurred to me.
Yeah, kind of, and yeah, different people have different tolerances for these things. A thing that I never quite appreciated, and I'm kind of learning more. Like, it's funny because the more public you get and the more people you talk to, the more you find out precisely the ways in which you're different than everybody else. Because people will tell you, like, oh, like what you're doing, I wouldn't do that. I'm like, oh, well, everything I do is a thing that I would do. That's why I did it, right? And people are like, oh, why are you so public? I would never be so public. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I did not know that about people until I heard it from them, right?
Yeah.
And part of it is, so like I'm Singaporean and I'm Indian. I'm a minority race where I'm from. I'm tall. I have a weird name. I have dark skin, and so I've always been I've never been able to hide. If like in a classroom of students, if I'm not in class, it's obvious immediately. Like Visa is missing. Like the tall, dark skinned guy. If it like sometimes like some kid can not show up to class and like the teacher doesn't notice because he just looks like everyone else. But I look so different from everyone else that if I'm not there, it's conspicuous.
Right.
And so I've always been I've always kind of received disproportionate attention, or I kind of been singled out a lot. And so from a very young age, I have kind of been put on the spot a lot. And so that has given me like, I mean, at the time it didn't even occur to me at the time that it was like unfair or whatever. Like it's just my life, right? Everyone's life is their life. And now that I look back, I'm like, oh, I kind of, it's like a gift and a curse. Like it's a little bit unfair that someone had to be singled out more than everyone else. But at the same time, it like gave me like my so-called superpowers in a sense, because I have been dealing with these. My whole life has been an infinite game of stand-up comedy in a sense. Like I'm always on stage, I'm always talking, and always having to explain myself. And so I don't know why I went to that. I guess it's just sort of, so I have a different risk profile or risk assessment than other people do. And I think a big part of what I do is because I have that skill set, it's almost, and I think of this almost in like a video game RPG kind of MMO sort of thing. It's like, okay, I have like immunity to, or like relative immunity to public criticism or to like social whatever, and I can use that as like a shield to block out the arrows from the front. And then I can like imagine, like I can, like there are people in my sphere who are smarter than me, more thoughtful than me, like better than me in every sense, except that they can't stand that social criticism as well as I can.
Right.
And so I can use that power to create a clearing for them, like an opening, like the tank in front, right? And then they can walk behind me sort of, and they can do their work. They can answer my questions, and so I kind of take the fall for them. And in a way, I think that's what in some sense you could say that's what leadership is, or in some sense that's like taking it's and so I think each person has their own version of that challenge. Like what is the skill that you have, or what is the comparative advantage that you have that you can use to help other people. Maybe you're a great chef, or maybe you're great at managing house parties or something, right? And you can, but you're shy to do something else. So you find someone else who has that skill, and then yeah. So like my wife is she's very different from me, and she doesn't like talking to people. Like she doesn't like socializing with new people the way I do. She doesn't like, there's a bunch of things like she doesn't like making money, right? Like she doesn't like having a job, and like we work very well together, and like our strengths complement each other, and like she like, so part of why I am able to be such a open-hearted kind of very, very high trust, very high openness kind of guy is that I can trust that if someone's about to screw me over, my wife will notice and she'll be like, hey, what the fuck? And so I don't need to balance both of those things at the same time. I can be more of this version of myself, and I can trust her to watch my back. And it's like in sports, right? Like you have different positions.
Yeah.
And so like it would be a shitty sports team if everybody had to perform every role all the time. Like then like there's no specialization.
Right.
So part of the excellent, beautiful thing of and life is multiplayer, right? And like school indoctrinates us into competing with everyone else, like in a very 1v1. Each of us has to perform standardized tests. But like the reality of it is actually so much more interesting and fun. It's like each person can kind of develop their own unique skills, and someone in the comments said Visa is a daycare worker guiding awkward nerds. Yeah. And awkward nerds, I honestly believe that they have so much value to give the world.
Well, here's a question.
Someone asked,
why friendly ambitious? Why the nerds part of friendly ambitious nerds?
I do consider myself a nerd, and I do think that so my definition of a nerd is someone who allows their curiosity to direct their behavior. So I have a very specific definition. I have very specific definitions for everything, I think it's a part of being a writer as part of that. But like allowing your curiosity to direct your behavior. I think so. If you're just friendly and you're ambitious, but you're not a nerd, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're not curious, then your curiosity will be directed for you. Same for if you're not, if there's like some prevailing social order and you would fit into that. And I just think that inquiry and curiosity and questioning is a great source of discovery and beauty and fun, and so I just love that. And
right.
Yeah, I've always been a nerd. If like the nerd part is my most the first trait to emerge in me was nerd. Like then came friendly, then came ambitious, I think. It's like so it's how can we and historically all the great shit that we take for granted, like this flight simulator and this Twitch stream and GPS, like all that shit was made by nerds. And if you read history, like there's this story about this guy from his name is Oleg something Losev. I don't know what the something is, but he invented LEDs like 30 years before anybody else. But he was an isolated nerd, and like no one found out and no one cared, and like that breaks my heart. It's just weak, and it's like just at some level, it's like first of all, it's a personal tragedy for him that no one knows who he was and what he did, and but like also like we set humanity back by decades and maybe centuries because like the things that nerds do, it's incomprehensible to other people, or it's it's looks scary or dangerous or whatnot, and so it's almost like I think I once read a blog post about flight and the Wright brothers and whatnot, and like even after they discovered flight, right, and they figured it out, like the progress on that was slow. That's the guy. Really sad. And the progress on flight becoming commercial was pretty slow because for some period of time people just didn't know and didn't care, and like didn't like there's this chasm between the innovation and society adopting it. And it's like, so then the bottleneck isn't innovation. It's not like we lack innovators. It's just that innovators are innovating amongst other innovators, and like a lot of that doesn't even make it to the rest of society. So like the bottleneck, in my opinion, is that that it transitions through, right? Oyster Smiling says the key difference is that the curiosity gets funneled away. and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think curiosity should be allowed to flourish in of itself. And in a way, what I'm saying, you like a kind of corporate reading of it, which I don't really like, but people may find it useful, is that we need better managers. And in general, people are shitty managers. And I don't want to single any individual out or any group of people out, but like, just imagine if we just had great managers everywhere, and like everyone could just work on what they thought was important. And I mean, it's kind of pie in the sky idealistic thinking, but like you start there and then you work backwards to how can we make that future more accessible, right? What does it take to
Yeah.
why can't everyone have a great place to work? Why can't everyone enjoy the work that they're doing, be allowed to pursue their curiosity, right? And then there's all kinds of reasons for that: bills, money, markets, and blah blah blah. And you can get really lost in the weeds on that. But yeah, and even
I have a question for you. Also, by the way, callers still welcome. Feel free to post in call-ins if you're interested. I have a question for you. First part of the question: have you ever played Dragon Age?
Yes.
Nice.
Origins.
Dragon Age. Okay, nice. That's one of my favorite games. Do you remember how there's the phenomenon that characters can get hardened? Do you know, like Alistair? I think the.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. You break his heart and then he becomes a cold motherfucker.
Right, and it's a choice. So for people who haven't played the game, there's like a branching paths about how the character develops, and there's kind of like a light version and a darker version. So I want to know. So I think that I love that. I love that as just an aspect of a game, that like the actual character changes based on the path. It's not just like
Great
good or bad
storytelling,
ending.
yeah.
It's amazing. God, I want to I'm just gonna replay it soon, I think. But what's Dark Visa? So if something changes and we get the hardened visa, however many years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily like what would precipitate that, but like what would be the change if it's even possible.
Yeah, I have a very, very clear image of the visa that I'm not, right? And
Yeah.
So Friendly Ambitious Nerd is a very pro-social frame, but it's actually, again, I don't include this in the messaging and I don't talk about it in these terms, especially because some people will interpret it in a negative way. But like, it's a dangerous book. And I say danger as in like, a chainsaw is dangerous, right? Like it's powerful. It's an invitation to people to become more powerful. And I think, like what you're asking is kind of like it's like the Star Wars question of like the dark side versus the light.
Yeah.
Right? And, I think so I have a thread about this, about like, if you strip away very cartoony ideas of heroes and villains, right? If you strip away I want to take over the world, or like I want to save the world, like that kind of simplistic thing, I think the core difference between a hero and a villain in stories is how they feel about the people, and the people meaning society in general, humanity in general. The hero tries to help the people, right? And the villain sees the people as they cannot be saved and you should just exploit them. Or maybe maybe the villain will say, I'm trying to save the people, but it's from a frame of reference of the people can't think for themselves, they can't make their own decisions, I will decide for them.
Yeah.
Right? Like Hydra claims that their motivation is we believe that humanity cannot be entrusted with its own freedom because it will make stupid decisions, and so for the security of the human species we have to be tyrannical and whatever. So Dark Visa would be, fuck it, there's no point trying to encourage people to be better. I just want to make as much money as possible and then use that to kind of accumulate resources, accumulate power, and use it for. So like one of the things I would do is I can make a lot more money by changing my messaging. So I'm a marketing guy and I understand marketing psychology. I could make my Twitter account like 10 times bigger in a matter of months if I wanted to, just by picking fights in the culture wars, right? Quote tweeting people for doing stupid shit.
Right.
And find people to attack people every day.
Yeah.
And be like this glorious, guy who is kind of beating down on weakness, finding weakness and beating it up, right? And like righteous anger and inspire people to kind of get involved in a holy war, right? Like I would define a villain, right? Find people to blame in society, right? And I will grow my following like crazy. I will make a ton of money. I will be miserable. That's the thing. You know, that's the tragic thing about the dark side is, so you know, I have at times contemplated going dark in little ways because you get to win all the fights by playing dirty. But the tragedy of the dark side is that it's the path without friends, because you know it's the path of power is might is right, and so you can't trust that any of your underlings are your friends, because all they respect is your power, and they will seek, you know, the moment you die, like they will rip apart your kingdom to shreds, and they will have they will have like a war of succession or whatever.
Right.
And yeah, that would be me kind of. So there are multiple reasons why I don't do it, and part of it is that I think even if I win, I lose. You know, in that sense, it's like even if I I get rich and then what? Like spend money on consumer goods. What's the point? Like, it's you know the world is a fuck. It's kind of my people don't realize how, and partially it's my fault because it's my messaging is so friendly and kind, but people don't typically realize how much anger I have, I guess, at the way the world is. But the thing is, if you get angry at the world for the way it is, and you express that anger in, you know, kind of fuck the world, kind of angry diatribes, you end up incentivizing other people to be angry around you, and then you get surrounded by other angry people, and then that just becomes this feedback loop of chaos. So it's like, it's really, you have to focus on, in my opinion, you have to focus on what you want to see more of, and then you have to be you have to be kind of you have to nurture and nourish good things, in my opinion. And yeah, it's it's an interesting thing to explore from like a, you know, storytelling perspective. Like if you were to write like fan fiction where Visa goes dark, what would make that happen? I guess there would have to be, you know, the first thing as a storyteller, the first thing that my brain says is kill his wife.
That was my thought.
The most cliche
right,
cliche kind of storytelling, and it's a sexist trope, right? Like a kind of. I think there's even a TV tropes page that's like the wife in the refrigerator or something like this. Love interest, what are the love interest, and you know, but even then, you know, I don't know. I would have to be, you know, you have to endure enough hardship and grief and pain that it makes you give up on goodness in the world, right? And you know, I think I was sufficiently radicalized by authors and musicians and artists, and you know, sometimes people say things like, I'm alone in the world, nobody loves me, nothing matters, fuck everything. And I've gone pretty close to that, but the kind of like the last bit of light in the darkest recesses of my mind is that there have always been artists, there have always been street musicians, right? There have always been authors, people who make poetry and music, even during like the Holocaust in the concentration camps, there were people making music. And as long as that has been the case, I consider myself one of them. I consider those people my family. Like they have been trying, like it's the musicians on the Titanic again, right? As long as there are musicians on the Titanic, those are my people, and those are the people that I want to kind of cherish and honor and support. And yeah, it's such a beautiful rebellion against the notion of an uncaring universe. Like as long as people who care, as long as there are, you know, like Mr. Rogers existed, right, at some point, and as long as there have been such people in the world, I want to be on their team, because I just do, I guess. I mean, maybe I'm lucky, maybe it's like neurological at some level, or maybe I was just indoctrinated from really young to be an idealistic kind of dude. Or, you know, just reading about every attempt at some kind of tyrannical conquest and how it just never lasts. Like it just seems to me that if you read enough history and you just have a broad enough view of the world, it's like, you know, Ray Bradbury has a quote that's like, at the end of everything, you'll see that at the end of your life, you see that love was the answer to everything. That's a Ray Bradbury quote. Bertrand Russell has something similar about, it's when he talked about like three things, like the joy of inquiry, trying to make the world less hostile for people, and also about falling in love, and just maybe it's just the good guys have better PR. There isn't the pleasure of power in that controlling sense. I find it kind of boring. I find it kind of unimaginative, and it's just I don't see myself excited to wake up in the morning and kind of exert power over other people and kind of
right.
There's some element of uncertainty in it. It's like part of the fun of life is surprise, right? How are people going to surprise you in good ways? And I guess if like maybe the dark side power people, they get pleasure from kind of like a sick pleasure from toying with people to see how they respond, but like the range of responses people have from being toyed with is not that broad. It's like people, I don't know. That's it's a little bit too in the weeds on that, but
this is why we get the Joker saying,
when you have I think in my frame it's like once you have hardened, you have kind of died in a sense. A part of you has died, and that's just like I almost think of choosing to be soft. I would say my biggest influence is Hayley Williams from Paramore, and she released an album called Petals for Armor, and it's just this radical idea of like, even after the world has kicked you in the gut, punched you in the face, slapped you around, and you just kind of stand up again and said, fuck it, I don't care. I still want love, and I still want to love others, and I will wear petals for armor, right? Like I will be soft in a hard world. Like I think it's fucking cool.
I love it. Thank you for that in-depth answer. I like there's something very interesting about like even if you win, you lose. This sense that you kind of compromise the vision or the end goal for something along the way. We do have somebody. Dalton is in the lobby waiting to ask a question, so let me bring him in here. And then also, if we'll just, we do have some Twitter. I forgot, we have some Twitter questions which we can, if you want to, whatever you want to do. But let's get Dalton.
Yeah.
Hey Dalton.
Whatever you think is fun.
Dalton, you're on the show, man. Whenever you unmute, we will hear you. Uh-oh.
Oh, we lost him. He's back in the lobby. Oh, he's back.
Hey, Dalton.
Testing.
Hey, I'm gonna turn you up.
Kind of soft, but yeah.
Michael, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Totally.
Heyo.
Yeah, so
I increased your volume a bit, but if there's any way to be a little bit louder on your end, that will be helpful.
I will turn me up. Is that better?
It's a little better. Here, go for it now. I think I have one other way I can increase your volume.
All right. I'll try to speak up as well.
Thank you.
So I'll try to make this a pointed question because it is kind of a cloud of associated thoughts in my head. But I guess what I am thinking about is now that we have like coronavirus vaccines rolling out and people are going to be returning out and gathering in communities in public, I'm thinking about the like social graph that we're a part of online and how much value that has had to me in this last year. I'm thinking about how do you start seeding those like positive communities and improving like the relationships of your social graph. How do you take that to the meat space in real life, especially because everyone's going to be flooding back to that space? I don't know if that sparks any thoughts for you, but that's what I'm thinking.
Oh man, that was I mean, so that was, I don't know if you know, but like that was my plan before COVID hit. So like in 2019 in May, some of my friends flew me out to the Bay Area, and I went around meeting people, Twitter friends. I organized multiple events, and it was an incredible experience because it's truly amazing how a kind of friendly outsider can show up and encourage people in a group in a kind of local scene to cross connect with each other. At one event that I did, And it was just it was like there's a group house in SF, and like it was so funny for me because they were just like, oh, Visa's in town and he's just gonna show up and he's just gonna talk or whatever, and like people showed up, like 20-30 people showed up, and actually let me post it in the chat. It's pretty amazing. Visa, and it was life changing for me, that experience, because I got to witness people show up, kind of for me, but like like if you see the tweet that I just posted in the chat, it might take a second to show up. It's like witnessing that experience. Oh, you can play it in the thing. Yeah. It really clarified for me how my job is to be a conduit for other people. Like, so here are all these people who had showed up to hear me speak, but I haven't started speaking yet, and they're all just making friends with each other. And like there were two guys, I don't know if it's at this event, I think it's at another event. Another day we met at a park at Dolores Park, and there were two guys who both worked at the same company, and they were like down the corridor from each other, right? And they've seen each other every day for like a couple of years, and they never had a conversation before that, like apart from like, hey, hi, good morning, whatever. But they don't work on the same team, but like they kind of see each other all the time. And it was after kind of meeting each other at a thing that I was at that now they're good friends, right? And they hang out all the time, and it's like the dominant malaise of humanity is alienation, loneliness, isolation. And I can I'm so privileged that I can just show up somewhere and reduce that in other people. And so like my plan for last year was to go to New York. I was planning to go to like every major city basically. I was gonna do New York meetups. I was gonna do Delhi, Berlin, London, and yeah, it's like my life's goal, and it's kind of fun. I feel like my long fated trip to New York, there's like an Odyssean quality to it. It's like I was gonna go, and then it's fucking coronavirus. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. This is what I want to do with my life. So people will, when I was in SF, people were like, hey, do you want to move here? Like, we can help you, we can set you up, we can get you a job, we can get you a place to live. And it's like, I was like, oh my god, that's I don't know if, so I wish everyone could experience that, although I don't know if people have the kind of it was such a blessing that I just felt like I have to share that with other people. I spent so much of my life feeling isolated and alone, and like people don't care about me. And I mean, like I have friends and family, sure, but like like even with friends or like my older group of friends, it's like I was, we were all kind of approximating what we each thought everyone else wanted to talk about, and it was difficult to really kind of be our fullest, truest selves with each other. And part of that is youth, I think, and if you like your early kind of inherited friends. But like I experienced this state of I get to be what feels like totally myself, and people love me for it, and people want to take care of me and show me around. Like it's such a it felt like I was born like for the it really felt like it and like, so if you look at some, like earlier I was talking with Michael about like Visa before, when I'm like kind of dreary and stiff and whatnot, and then Visa after, where I'm like my face is fresher and I'm like livelier, I wear brighter colors. Like all of this is kind of downstream of that in a sense. And I want to, it feels like it would be selfish of me to keep it to myself, right? It feels like if I can give anybody else a seed of that and they can take it with them, like it's almost a duty. But again, I don't want to be too like, oh, I am burdened with glorious purpose, look at me, listen to me, I have this. No, fuck that. It's just I'm this casual, friendly nerd, and I just want to hang out, and people can come to hang out, and we can have barbecues and chat, and people can make friends. Some people find significant others at these events. Some people find co-founders for their companies and stuff, and it's I bet that if I start doing it, like, so as soon as people are vaccinated and it's like safe and sane to travel, I'm gonna start doing it. And now I know how to vlog, so I'll make videos and write about it. And I think once I do like 3 or 4 major cities, I bet other people will feel compelled to do the same, and that would be so fun. Like one of the things we were talking about before COVID was like, what if we all kind of on Twitter at least, right, every year we pick some city like in the world, and then everyone who wants to go to that city, that like we all go around the same time. So like maybe 2022, let's all go to Tokyo, and like 2024, let's all go to Berlin, right? And it's like it's extra cool because you're traveling. You might be traveling alone, but you get to hang out with all these other people. Yeah, in group call. Doesn't that sound wonderful?
That sounds
it's
sick.
just fucking coronavirus, man. And even if you can't go, you get to see all these photos and videos of like all these Twitter friends that you know hanging out, and it's just so humanizing, and it makes the world feel smaller. It feels less cold and lonely. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's what I want to do with my life, basically.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The thing that was striking to me is actually because I've only been on Twitter for like less than a year, but it doesn't take a large following to start making like those real connections and real friendships. So, yeah. Thanks again, Michael and Visa, for having me on. Thanks, Visa, for your answer.
Thanks for coming by, dude.
Cheers,
Yeah,
Delvin.
see you guys.
Great to have you. Nice. I love that video, dude. That's amazing. That's a great
Yeah.
video. In-group con.
And it's like it was really amazing. Yeah, and the cool thing was I could walk to, so I used to think that I'm not very great at like I don't really like going to noisy bars and going to like other people's parties, and I don't know anyone. But like when at this particular party of sorts, I could go to every conversation and they would immediately like open up and welcome me in and be like, oh, we were talking about this, and it's like it felt like it made me realize, oh, I love people if I know who they are and we have common interests and all of those things.
Right. This has been
And
one
so,
of my. I was just gonna say it's been one of the inspirations for this show has been how can we given the virus, etc., be one click closer to hanging out. You know what I mean? This has kind of been one thought.
Awesome.
Yeah, in-group con. I'm super. I think we can do in-group con. It might be a dick move to charge money, and probably we shouldn't. But like, you do have to pay for stuff, so like maybe some marginal fee, or I don't know. Not make any commitments there, but like, someone should do it. Or even if it's just people hanging out.
I think we can probably. Yeah, I can do it informally, and like whoever is in the city that is kind of the host city, like they should be the ones who are like, kind of host them. I mean, you can go somewhere, do an Airbnb or whatever, and just.
Right.
I think it can be pretty. Yeah.
The let's hit these. I think I have the here's the question list just so that I can not be a liar. If you want to hit one or two of these,
sure.
Yeah,
sure. Pull it up in the.
Oh yeah, I can pick
screen, I guess.
It's not a bad way to do it. Let me put it up on the screen.
That's so fun. I just saw a random tweet on my timeline that's like how to escape in group.
Good luck. All right, tell me when to scroll.
The funny thing is, trying to escape in group is when you. So like one of the most powerful things that I know that you can't really talk about because the way you talk about it influences the thing is that in a question like how to escape in group just brings you closer to in group, because you're mentioning in group. So it's like the thing that you talk about always gets more like it feeds on itself, So like you cannot focus on what you don't want because that just attracts more conversations about what you don't want. And so it's like the power move is, and it seems weird, it feels unnatural and unintuitive, but like the power move is to ignore the timeline and just talk about whatever you feel like talking about.
Totally.
Which is very unnatural, but it's very powerful. Yeah. Okay. Questions. So what, like all those that I didn't reply to, or
I don't know. Well, whatever interests you.
I don't know. You choose. Read them
all
out,
right.
and I'll just kind of.
All right, let me look.
My favorite thing about being a guest on other people's shows is that I can just say, "You do it." I don't want to be responsible for. I'll just vibe. It's like your show. Next time when you come on my show, like I'll be the one responsible for.
All right.
Michael, what do you think?
Sounds good. All right. Well, we did have this one about Jordan Peterson. So What's Visa's deep take on Peterson? At a surface level, JBP focuses on life's suffering and people's potential for evil. VV focuses on good vibes and potential for good. Are these complementary components of a well-rounded personal philosophy or diametrically opposed views?
Right. So I think they're definitely complementary. It's like a yin yang thing where, like the light is in the dark and the dark is in the light. And I was pretty late to Peterson. I never really got hugely into him. I think what the value that a lot of people seem to get out of Peterson, I think I got my fix from Alan Watts around like a few years before Peterson became like popular. And the difference between Watts and Peterson is pretty like they talk about some of the same things, but I would say, I was studying a little bit of Peterson fairly recently. I went to watch like his lectures people have said like his lectures are like the right kind of, if you want to get into his thinking and stuff, you should go to his lectures. And it's like a reintroduction to Jungian stuff, to
Right.
and that sort of thing, and Christian ideas and myths and how to that sort of thing. And I appreciate that, and it's something that Elliot House used to talk about a lot as well, and it's a familiar territory to me. And so I don't, because a lot of it is familiar to me, I think for guys who for anybody who someone like Peterson is their first introduction to these ideas, like it's extra kind of
mind-blowing.
compelling.
Totally.
Yeah. And also the thing that Peterson does really well that the rest of the world doesn't do so well is that he very obviously cares. Like he has this, in the context of the lecture, so I'm not going to address like his, some people say, oh, he's transphobic or what. If when you go into the detail, it's like a bunch of stuff, it's messy, whatever. But let's just ignore that stuff and focus on the good that he's done, right? And what he does well is that he conveys a sense of concern for the well-being of the people he's lecturing to and his students. He cares about their lives, right?
Right.
And you can see, there's I was listening pretty recently, like he did an interview with someone very, very recently, like after he got into his coma and came out, and then like somebody was interviewing him, and it was like a gotcha kind of interview where they were kind of trying to make him look bad.
Right.
And he posted the audio of the entire interview, and like very early in the interview, there's this lady asking him, what's your experience been like? And he starts talking about all these people who come up to him on the streets and say, Mr. Peterson, you saved my life, blah, blah, blah. And he starts crying. And I was like, holy shit, this guy is, that's so, he's a sensitive guy, that's so far removed from the mainstream narrative of what Peterson is like, and in some sense, his sensitivity, and I would say, very broadly, a lot of the tragedy of a lot of celebrities is that people love them because they're sensitive, and then the reward for being sensitive is you
pain.
get fucking, yeah. And I would say that the weakness of Peterson, or and again, it's very easy for me to criticize someone else who is, such a public figure, and I've just been tweeting on my alt recently that, and I have just under 30,000 followers, and I've been tweeting on one of my alts that being a public figure is so dangerous and agonizing. It's like lifting a lot of weight or driving really fast because you're just receiving all these energy and feedback from other people. And Peterson deals with this like fucking 100 or 1,000 times more than I do.
Yeah.
So very, very easy for me to say anything about Peterson and be like, he's not doing well, and like fuck me, right? Like I have to so when if I ever reach a fraction of his scale of influence or whatever, then you can point out what I'm doing wrong. But so with that caveat, and with love, right, for someone who's trying to help other people, right? That's kind of how I'm choosing to parse Peterson. I do detect that from watching his early lectures that he's an anxious and neurotic kind of guy. Like his personality, pretty deep down, is pretty anxious and neurotic. It's kind of Batman-ish in a sense. He has read some things about the world. He has encountered some things about the world. So some people say he's like a scaremonger with regards to what he calls cultural Marxism. But when I was watching it, so it's like the question is, do you think he's being genuine or not? So if you think that he is creating this boogeyman just so that he can, strike down a straw man for the spectacle of it,
Right.
then that makes him look kind of bad. But if you really examine it, he was a professor, kind of quietly professing for like a couple of decades before he became a public figure, right? And my sense is, I think he is genuinely scared and worried about what he perceives to be the threat to kind of civilization.
Right.
I think he is he's genuinely concerned that there are people in the world, and I have encountered such people, right? People who have become so abstracted from the concrete nature. So one of his riffs that I remember him saying is like, so there's a spectrum from order to chaos, right? And the good part of chaos is creativity, right? It's like that newness and tinkering and exploration and like new ideas, new whatever.
Yeah.
And the good side of order is you have just the sewage system works, right?
Right.
Like things just work. You trust that the building's not going to fall on you. Like that's order. And like civilization is, generally speaking, like closer to order than chaos, right? Like humanity is this you could say that so you could interpret a lot of arguments about kind of society as on the spectrum of order versus chaos, and a lot of people feel that the patriarchy is order gone too far, and yeah, there's truth to that. There is a tyranny of when you have like abuse of power and things like that. But Peterson's anxiety seemed to be that people are kind of trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater and be like, abolish everything,
Right.
dethrone all authority, and then have like chaotic, like go straight to full on chaos.
Right.
And he does seem to have legitimate anxiety about that, and I would not dismiss that. I again, funny, right? If you think about it, some people would say that you shouldn't dismiss people's anxieties when you're talking about, people who are relatively less privileged, who are anxious about racism, anxious about sexism, anxious about abuse. Like those people's anxieties are, you can always describe an anxiety as overblown.
Yeah.
It's always overblown until it's not, right? But like when, I guess because he's a like a straight white man, he's like a, it's easy to dismiss his anxieties as, oh, fuck that guy, what the fuck does he know, he's so rich, he's so whatever.
Right.
And I have always had some sympathy for anybody's anxieties, like I try not to pick and choose. That said, so I've just kind of gone along trying to express his thing. I do think, like, so if I met Peterson for a beer, for dinner, right?
Yeah.
I would try to make him laugh. I think that his neuroses and his anxieties, understandable where it comes from, and it's part of it is his personality, I think, and part of it is, it's one of the tragedies of being a public figure, that like what you fear kind of comes after you. His sort of my armchair analysis of what, like, his weak point, right, his Achilles heel, is that he doesn't quite have a well-developed sense of humor, and so he can't laugh at himself or at his. I mean, I tried to kind of test this hypothesis, and I went looking up for Peterson humor, Peterson jokes, Peterson laugh, like on YouTube.
Right.
And it's like it's pretty weak. The guy's laughter is very it's kind of thin. It's like like if you see Peterson, he never quite goes into that really. Yeah. And Alan Watts is amazing at this. Alan Watts can laugh about despair and like. And Alan Watts describes, he says, laughter and anxiety are two sides of the same coin, and that I think he said religion or sacredness is transmuting anxiety into laughter, and I think Peterson struggles with that. And again, when I say struggles with that, it's like maybe he would be great at it as a private individual, but like when you're a public individual at this scale, and like you just get bombarded with like people put the weight of the world on your shoulders, right? It's like really, people must be messaging him every day. My girlfriend left me. My dad's a fucker, and then like he feels that burden, and that just amplifies the anxiety. And so like me telling Peterson, yo, you gotta chill out, dude. Like gotta learn to laugh at this shit. Like easy for me to see, right? But I do also honestly think that's kind of the missing thing. And I think part of the tragedy of being any kind of leader or any kind of public figure is that people will inherit your neuroses. People will kind of just in your messaging, right? So like you like in your casual ramblings and just when you're just talking out loud, your thoughts will go kind of where like around the things you're worried about and things, and people will pick up on that, right? It's like how if you're a child and you sense that your parents are afraid of something, you kind of inherit that by osmosis, even if you don't know exactly what it is that they're worried about. And there is that thing that happens with public figures as well. And so that is, I mean, so again, Peterson's probably not going to listen to this, right? But like
Right.
with I do wish him well. I see him as someone who's trying to be a public servant. In fact, if anybody thinks poorly of Peterson, I would say the real problem is not that Peterson is imperfect. The problem is that there's only one of him. You know, there should be thousands of people like Peterson who are stepping up to be, you know, the surrogate fathers and big brothers of the world that the world is lacking.
I mean,
right?
this is partially the Batman thing, is how I read
Sorry,
it.
say again?
I read it as partially being the Batman thing, right? It's like the sort of like the tragedy of the lone hero is like not really having friends, and then they sort of become this weird, hardened piece of a thing they could have been like in a network. You know what I mean? Like could have had someone to like cover their back. You know?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's. I wish there were more people with inhabiting Peterson's role with more variety in emotional expression. So Peterson wouldn't have to be, you know, everything to everyone if there was a wider range of people inhabiting that kind of role. And maybe there's some kind of like selection bias thing where surely those guys exist, but they're just not kind of at that scale. And you know, so I try to put my money where my mouth is. So I try to kind of play the counter melody and provide what I think, you know, Peterson. So it's easy for me to say, Peterson, you're providing A, B, and C, but you should also be providing D, E, and F. As a consumer, I'm disappointed. Like that's
Right.
Always easy for a consumer. So I'm like, okay, Peterson's providing A, B, and C. I think D, E, and F should also be provided, and so I'm going to try and provide that. You know, and then
Totally.
hopefully we can all encourage more people to step up and help other people along, and so on.
Let me grab another Twitter question. Someone did ask if you've tried psychedelics or MDMA. Feel free to take it or not.
I can't answer that question, man. I'm Singaporean.
Yeah.
Singapore is such a... It's very, very, very illegal where I'm from.
Got it.
Like, you know,
Got it.
my wife always worries that if I even talk about this stuff, there'll be like cops at my door.
Totally.
And like, yeah, you know, they'll like seize your computers and shit. It's a mess. It's something that Singapore needs to get better at. But like the way I explain it is that, you know, like, so some people are like, what the fuck is up with Singapore being so paranoid about drugs?
Right.
But like, you know, and when Lee Kuan Yew was a young boy, like a quarter of the Singaporean Chinese population was on opium.
Oh,
like
wow.
1 in 4 people were, so it's like there was a drug epidemic, and like you would go in the streets and you would see people just, you know, kind of like worse than any homeless problem or whatever. It's like just a quarter of the population is kind of addicted, and so that became like the social boogeyman kind of thing. And it's like I guess as a society we have a trauma response to that. So it's like we are, you know, it's like the former alcoholic who won't touch a drop of alcohol. It's like it's like we just Singapore was once a drug haven, and we are very determined as a culture to overcorrect. I do think that, you know, so I am kind of I am optimistic about it seems like psychedelics and so on have had a really profound effect on a lot of people who are struggling with depression and all those things. And I hope that we can see more medical experimentation and just more insight into how these things can have therapeutic roles. My understanding of it, based on what I've read, is that you know, it gives people a glimpse of a different life. Like so just as how I said, like I used to be that depressed, morose Lisa, and then now I am this. It's like I believe that when you try mushrooms or LSD or whatever, like what people describe, it's sort of like, you know, you glimpse what the colorful life is like, and then it fades off and you go back to what it was before. But like once you have glimpsed what is possible, like then you know that, oh, you know, I don't have to be this way. And then it does take work to kind of walk the path, but like one of the main reasons people don't walk paths is because they can't see where they're going, and if you don't see where they're going, there's no motivation to go there. So definitely would like to see more experimentation and good faith. It is funny though. I've heard that part of I think I read something like, so psychedelics, they kind of put you in like this hyper connection state, and I do feel like I don't know for sure, but I feel like I'm in that state all the time.
Yeah.
And there's this sense of like, or like some version of that state. And if people try that kind of drug or whatever in a clinical environment, then it's just going to heighten the sensation of being in a clinical environment. So you have a bad trip because you're in a hospital or whatever, and then you think that, oh, the patient had a bad trip, therefore the substance is bad. But
Actually, you
it's
just locked
not
them up.
the substance, but the context.
Totally. Yeah, I've had friends who are like, nah, I just felt like myself, but more, or like more, something like that. There was one question about living in historical periods to serve as a foundation to test theories, narratives, or claims of the modern day. I did look, and you had actually answered that person's question last year. But if that inspires anything in you right now, feel free to grab it. I'm generally curious about your perspectives on history and some sort of like how you relate to it, because a lot of people don't study history and don't find it relevant. And yeah,
that's so tragic, man. My favorite, I think the sort of my one-line pitch for history is that it's binge watching past seasons of current affairs. So like it's like all of us when we are born, it's like we are in season 2000, right? Season 2017 or whatever. And like, what the fuck is going on? Why is that character doing that thing? And why is that kingdom in chaos? And why is all of those things? It's like, oh, dude, you got to start from season 1.
Dude, I've used that exact. I've used that exact. Sorry to interrupt you. I just think I've used that exact metaphor in an essay I wrote about. I think I said like 80 seasons or like however many centuries or something like that. But yeah, anyway, interesting. Yeah. Please go ahead.
And I've been digging into it more recently, and I'm like, the kind of amazing thing is, and historians might hate me for this, but like, there's not actually that much history. I mean, there's enough history, there's enough detail in history to spend multiple lifetimes exploring all the details, right? But the big picture overview of history is like, it's like several TV shows. It's like if you've watched Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad and like maybe 5 other shows like that, you could spend. I'm not saying, oh, it's bad to watch TV. You should instead watch history. I think you can do both, right? But like, if you know Harry Potter and you know Game of Thrones and you know Star Wars and but like, we have the mental capacity to understand a lot of stories. I think very often people get intimidated by learning something that seems academic adjacent. It's like, oh, there's so much history and there's so much stuff going on. I'm like, it's just stories, dude. It's just stories of people doing things.
Totally.
Right? And we do devote a ridiculous and excessive amount of attention to current affairs. Where like, if you look back at like 4 years ago or like 8 years ago, and you go to the Wikipedia page for that, and you scroll through it, you're like, yeah, that happened. Actually, can you pull up a Wikipedia page for like 2011 or something? Like, this will be a great way to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Like, yeah, if you scroll through a Wikipedia page for a few years ago.
Just for 2011.
This
for the year.
Wikipedia and arbitrary year 2000. Yeah, sure. Then you click on it and you kind of scroll. Let's look at the events, right? Like Estonia adopts Euro. Like then January 1 and then January 2 and 3 are left out. Nothing happened on January 2 and 3 or 6, 7, and 8. But every day you get bombarded with the daily news, right? That a few years from now, when you look back, those days don't actually matter. Then you keep scrolling. You're like, oh, February already. What happens? Mubarak resigns. Okay, Libyan civil war. Okay, I'm probably not gonna. It's like it's a New Zealand earthquake. Like and you can actually spend a few minutes just kind of recap. And I recommend everyone do this if you're bored. Recap the years of history of your own life. Like kind of try to summarize each year of your own life's history, and then you kind of put it next to the history of the world. WikiLeaks happened in April. Like, whoa, like that's something we still kind of think about. William and Kate got married. Osama died. Osama was killed. But like, then you contrast reading this history with the day-to-day current affairs discussions of these things, and it's like we spend so many hours discussing current affairs, like too much. We could spend half that time discussing history, and we would arrive at a more comprehensive understanding of human affairs, and yeah, like it's so lately and again, it's always easy to preach at other people, and the challenge is to do yourself what you think should be done, which is what I'm doing now. So I've been reading about Renaissance Italy, reading about Athens in the age of Pericles, and the Baghdad House of Wisdom.
Nice.
How did the Babylon play out? It's not that many things. It's like 5 TV shows really. And then when you literally, I woke my wife up to tell her that Osama was killed, and she got mad at me. Yeah. I remember me and my wife were having a very romantic evening, and it was leading on to something more, exciting. And then we found out that the Malaysia Airlines disappeared, and the romance that night was completely killed. We spent the rest of the night looking up. I mean, condolences to the lives lost, and like it's a horrible tragedy for people. But like, I will always remember that _17 cock blocked me that day. Anyway, but like, yeah, that's. I think it's really great to weave your personal life narrative with history, right? And just to kind of see, like, why do we speak English, right? Like, why? So I'm of Indian descent, but I'm in Singapore. Why? As a Singaporean male, I have to serve in the military for a couple of years. Why? All of the answers, there's 5 days in a week, in a work week, and 2 days weekend, and we might be transitioning to 4 days with fingers crossed. Why? Like, almost every question about everything around us has some historical answer, and then you just go and explore your curiosity and be like, okay, like why is it that July and August are in the middle? Like December should mean 10, right? And October should mean 8. But like we've nudged all the months forward to squeeze in July and August, and so now like November, which should be 9, becomes 11. It's totally stupid. But like, so why do we have July and August? Oh, it's Julius Caesar and Augustus, and then it's like, what's up with that? Why did they get to have months? And then you go and look it up, and it's just out of curiosity for understanding how things are the way they are. You end up learning all these details about the world, and it makes the world feel so much more lived in. It's like humanity is old. It's like, I mean, it's thousands of years of human history, the wars, pestilence. Like, so reading about the Black Death and the 1918 pandemic, it makes you feel less alone. Like, we weren't the first people to struggle with this thing, like, and we are lucky enough to have antibiotics. And you're like, oh, why do we have antibiotics? And you learn about Alexander Fleming, and how his petri dish thing, and how people kind of didn't believe him, and like the scientific establishment was like, you're talking bullshit. Like, he tried to persuade them that you shouldn't use I think something on like necrotic wounds, and this is an interesting story there about how like the scientific establishment was in denial in the face of evidence. So when you know these things, like same for when Semmelweis said doctors should wash their hands, and the doctors were like, no, right?
Yeah.
And like when you read about those things, and then you find out that the WHO says don't wear masks, like that's
it makes
scientific
sense.
establishment is a fuck. It's always been like for all of human history.
I really quickly wanted to shill this
Beautiful
timeline. It's a timeline of starts at 1000. I wish I could make it sideways. I don't know how to make it not be. How do I open this in a new tab?
There is a way, but I once accidentally did it. You ever press the keyboard weirdly, and then like suddenly your whole monitor's like...
happens. There might be some way for me to... Anyway, well, I don't know, tilt your head, I guess. But like, it's pretty cool because it's like, okay, 1,900, 800, and it just goes all the way up to, 2,000, right? And these lines on the right side, those are the lengths of human lives.
You know how you can do it? Right click, you can convert it to a PDF. Oh wait, no, never mind. I tried to Google it, and it's...
there might be a way
to... If you can right click, and if there is, if not, fuck it. Or you could save the image.
Yeah, let me save it. Downloads. And then
that's so cool.
Rotate.
World history charts.
Yeah, I can
Oh, it says
here.
The comment says the history stuff sounds like kind of a lot. It is, but so here's the thing. Everything that's on your mind right now, it's also a lot. It's just that we don't think about it because it's just the air that we breathe, right? So it's like we are all actually carrying a ton of information with us all the time. It's just that when we are being entertained, right, that we don't realize that we're remembering shit. Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Assyria, Persia, Parthia, yes, Greece, Roman Empire, Gupta, that's when they invented the zero.
Uh-huh.
Maurya, Sassanid, Babylonia.
So it's cool because these widths are kind of like the rise and fall. And just here, if I scoot forward to the end, it's like,
This is amazing.
you know, EU is over here. It's like United States is like pretty short, right? But then you put in the context of all this. And then all these names, if I zoom in, it's like, you know, boom, like you know, Cromwell.
Alberti,
Right.
Kublai Khan,
And on the
Akbar.
the red ones, the orange ones are like, what do you, here I could,
Rulers.
yeah, ruler, political and military. I think the yellow is like philosophical and religious, and then or maybe just religious,
Yeah.
and then blue is like art and
Blue is art,
yeah,
green is science.
yeah, green is science, exactly. You know, Darwin, right? And
So cool.
I just love it that it's this is like my favorite one that I've
Yeah.
found, and I like that you can look at a human life, right, and be like, oh, it's like not too
Right.
many if you're gonna skip back through history. Like it's just not that many. I mean, it's a lot, but it's like 20,
Yeah.
30, you know.
Yeah,
So, thought that was cool.
like you could. That okay. Can you post the link?
Yeah, totally.
I wanna.
Let me.
It's awesome.
Yeah, this is my.
Yeah,
favorite.
I think I'm gonna print that out. That's awesome.
Yeah, you can
You
buy
know,
it.
if you just look at it every day, if you just look at it every other day or so, like after a while you'll just internalize it, right? Like you I think people underestimate how if you look at something every day, it just becomes a thing that you know.
Uh-huh. Yeah, of
Right.
things
Like,
to study, I
you know-
love that one. For sure.
Like you know, I used to play GTA Vice City fairly often as a kid.
Yeah.
And I saw some guy playing it recently, and I realized that my mind still has the entire city map in my head.
Uh-huh.
Like, why? It's just,
Uh-huh.
but like, yeah, it's just the way it is.
Yeah. I have this weird experience because I listen to a lot of audiobooks while I play games.
Right.
And then I'll boot up Minecraft and suddenly I'm thinking about the French Revolution or like, you know, that's another weird.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
like associations, mind palace shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you know humans. So like the big. Now we're getting into like UX shit, but like the big sadness, not sadness, but like the semi tragedy or whatever. It's just the way we do screens, right, and file management and whatnot. Like it's all 2D. It's like on our screens,
Mm.
and that completely underutilizes the human intuition for 3D space. And like yeah, just as how you know if you've played like a video game like Half-Life or whatever, like you remember the spaces, like you're walking around and you remember where everything is. And like yeah, you know, we could be, if I could put all my Twitter threads and shit like in a Minecraft place, I mean, that would be, you can walk around and then you start to remember where things are.
Are there any good like visualization tools for a person's Twitter? Did we lose your
I
audio?
know some people who have been working on
Oh no.
related things.
Yeah.
I'll say. There's this guy Ollie. His Twitter account is like OllieBot_Redux. He has this thing where you can export your Twitter archive and then you upload it to his web app,
Uh-huh.
and then it prints out like all of your tweets as little squares, and it's like on your browser like a massive thing, and then you can mouse over each square and the tweet appears, and then you can click on the thing to go to the tweet, and it shows all your threads like as square links with squares, and so it's like this kind of chaotic massive web of, I mean in my case because I have so many tweets,
Mm-hmm.
but like it's an interesting way to explore your entire body of work. And I have this other friend, Felix,
yeah.
who's helping me build this. So I asked for like a version of that it's less chaotic and it's more kind of like, what if you displayed all of your tweets like on a grid? So it's a grid of squares, and then when you mouse over, it shows you the tweet, and so you can kind of run like if you can go to your website like I don't know, twittersquares.com/your username, and then it just shows you like how, so let's say you have like 20,000 tweets. You can put 20,000 small squares in your browser. Like again, like 20,000 sounds like a lot, but it can fit all in one thing.
Mhm.
Then you can kind of just like casually scan your mouse over the whole thing, and like as you scan your mouse, like random tweets kind of appear and jog your memory, and it's a fun way to revisit your older thoughts. And like we are still in the early ages of like all of this technology, and like eventually this stuff will be like VR and like in your head and whatnot, right? And then we'll be like, how did we ever live without those tools, right? Like where we can remember every single tweet we've ever tweeted all at once, all the time.
Totally. I mean, just Twitter search is just so broken. It's like any improvement feels like a a big thing.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, we're over 3 hours, and since we have you here, I don't know if anybody has a couple more questions, or if there's anything you wanted to hit Visa, just anything you want to leave us with, or questions. And I've got a bit of time to chill for a bit longer if there was any call in somebody wanted to do, but whatever you're into.
I'll chill myself for a second. So if any of you guys are still here, I have a YouTube channel that I'm trying to grow. So just search for me and subscribe if you don't mind. If you don't mind, do it. It'll be fun.
Do it, bitch.
And I have an ebook called Friendly Ambitious Nerd, which it kind of explores all the stuff a whole bunch of stuff I've been talking about. So check that out. Aside from that, so that's my word from our sponsors.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I do like to try and leave people with something that is genuinely kind of, I mean, not to say that those things aren't useful, but like, something that what's something people can take away with. I guess, I think there is value in being like really simple and naive, like this childlike. I would invite you to consider subscribing. Yes, people, I love it. I love it when people correct me with my own things, right? That's a beautiful thing about being like on the slightly public figure path, is that you say some stuff and then other people will be like, hey, you said that stuff, like, oh yeah, you're right, shit. They help you along. And that's part of why, like, beyond, what am I going to Beyonce? Like, like when sometimes you see there's like a power law in competence, and you're like, how are those people so freaking competent? They didn't get there themselves. They had people nudging them and pushing them, and that's why scenes are so amazing, because they nudge. Anyway, I'm rambling. What I wanted to leave people with is, I think there's value in being very, very childlike and simple and naive in your questions. Like I think when people get exposed to like all this intellectual stuff, and people are talking about philosophers and concepts and it's really which is also fine, not to shit on that, but like it's been kind of lately a thing that's been recurring for me is like people seem surprised to encounter simple answers to simple questions. So it's things like, how do you learn stuff? Like try and try it and screw around and fuck up and try again. Like, oh, what if fucking up is costly? Okay, find a cheaper way to fuck around. Like try and just experiment with stuff, play around, make mistakes, fail. Like find a safe environment to fail in. And somebody said, how do I do that? And I'm like, like children do it very naturally. So observe children and copy them. Like watch them like flail and knock stuff over and whatever. And it's like, it's fine. It's fine to make mistakes and screw up. I think people have really been, I guess as you get older and you get kind of worried about looking stupid or, being childish or whatever. But like, I think there's a lot of value in asking simple questions and kind of following them. I think that's kind of the thing, like the mood that I have today that I would like to share with people is like, let's enjoy simplicity, right? And just kind of like, just reach out to an old friend and say, hey, I was watching a guy on Twitch earlier, and he said I should reach out to an old friend, and I thought of you. How you doing? Right? Like little things like that, they really go a long way, and people kind of get all wound up in really complex things. But it's like such simple stuff, right? Like talk to people, make friends, do what you love. If try and do a little bit of it if it's not something you have time and energy for. Life doesn't have to be, like this ordeal. Like, I mean, it is, but you can also be playful about it and have fun.
All right, man. Perfect. It was awesome to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Easy guess, I just fly the plane and listen to you talk. So this was awesome. Everybody who came by, thank you for coming by. It's great to get some callers, new followers. We did have one more question. When is new book dropping? Do you want to say anything about that?
Oh yeah, I definitely want to drop it by the end of the month, but hopefully next week. Yeah, I think probably next week. Like, so I got a podcast with you. I mean, I just did this with you, and then later tonight I'm talking to Becoming Critter. Then tomorrow I don't have anything on, so tomorrow I'm gonna work on my book and I'll try and be done in a week or so.
Hell yeah! Well, I'll get a copy. Say hi to Critter for me. He's got a good thing going there. Good to see everybody, and
Yeah, he's great.
We'll be back with a new guest next week. And thanks again, Visa.
Cheers, dude. Take care.